I'm kind of happy, also not happy same time, you know.
Tell me about what you think about Nuguri as a player.
Like he's best top laner in the world, that's what they say. I think I agree, but we will see about that today.
Well, I wish you good luck on that. Thank you very much for the interview. Now back to you guys.
Thanks a lot.
Heroes will be made.
When you're walking on the streets, you'll find out.
Titans will fall.
I wanna play by my own rules. Nothing matters, nothing. I wanna tell them that we're not fools. I wanna tell them that we're not fools.
And at the end of it all, we'll have our champion. It's time for the moment we've all been waiting
So
for.
I decide to stay, but fear already knows me.
This is Worlds 2019.
We are kind of region that likes to play really aggressive. We don't care if they're like, oh, we're in a team, like they're really good. We gonna only play our game.
I always end up playing against Supermassive in big stage. I want to make people remember Royal Youth more than Supermassive.
I think their time is gone. Now it's our time.
Someone may have just punched their ticket to Europe and will be our third seed at the World Championship.
저희가 아무래도 신입 팀이다 보니까 경기 수가 그렇게 많지가 않거든요. 그런 큰 무대도 그렇고 그래서 아마
我是很想再遇到 Fnatic， 然后再把他们送下去。
所以这次我们已经准备好了，对，不会再输给 Fnatic。
Sự khác biệt giữa Việt Nam và các khu vực khác thì Việt Nam tụi mình thường ưu tiên ăn mạn hơn là ăn mục tiêu. Vào một ngày đẹp trời thì mình nghĩ là mình có thể đánh bại được rất là nhiều đội ở vòng khởi động.
ตอนแรกก็ตื่นเต้นนะแต่พอได้มาหลายๆครั้งมันก็ทำให้เราชินเวทีไปก็นั่นแหละจะทำให้การเล่นออกมาได้ดีขึ้นผมคิดว่า
저희 말고도 다른 두 팀이 꼭 활약해서 높은 좋은 성적까지 좀 내면 좋을 것 같아요.
这次代表了 MS 是抱负住很多观众的期望。
Maybe this is the last shot, and that's why I'm giving like my blood here.
Hello and welcome to the LEC studio in Berlin, Germany for the 2019 League of Legends World Championship. Please join me in welcoming the contenders in our next match in the playing stage. Starting on the blue side from Turkey's TCL is Royal Youth. And on the red side from Korea's LCK, Damwon Gaming. One more time, let's hear it for Royal Youth and Damwon Gaming.
Thank
you so much, Law, and welcome to the caster desk for game number 1 of day 2. And we've got a spicy one, Frosco, so thankfully I needed to have my next LCK prospective caster join me on the desk.
Is this tryouts now?
Yeah,
You had
absolutely.
Ejim and now you've got me?
Yeah, no, we might actually take both of you.
Okay, perfect. Sorry,
Yep.
Trev. No, I'm super stoked to be here. I'm actually a little bit nervous. It's been a while. The energy in the room is quite electric, and I see a lot of CB LOL fans just kind of scattered all throughout the crowd.
Brazil certainly with a lot of representation, but we're not going to see them until game 3 here. We need to start off with Turkey versus Korea. And that's a weird thing to say. We're in the play-in stage, Frost. Like, I've casted play-ins before. I didn't have an LCK team to cast, and now we're here.
It's kind of like the overarching narrative, I feel like, a lot of these teams in these last 2 groups is about new starts and about redemption.
Yep.
And kind of shouldering the expectations of teams that have kind of failed in the past. And unfortunately, or I guess fortunately for us because we get to see them, it's now an LCK team for the first time ever in play-ons. And if you guys haven't gotten a good look at what Damwon are, if you haven't been listening to the analyst desk, the short and sweet of it is that we are going to see a very explosive, very different LCK animal and incredible solo laners in Showmaker and Nuguri.
Yeah, these guys are powerhouses. If you ever want to learn how to play laning phase, by the way, just watch a pro view of Nuguri. Just take any of them and just watch how he stutter steps, which minions he goes for, when he goes for trades, because it's probably the optimal way to play League of Legends.
And that means that a lot of pressure is then on the other side for Royal Youth. I don't think anyone is going to pretend that this isn't a lopsided matchup. That said, the TCL time and time again do show that they're one of the strongest emerging regions in the play-ins, so expectations are again still very high. It's not super massive, but it is the guys that took them down that went through guys like Wolf, so he's probably like, you know, if I could take down former SKT Wolf, maybe I can get a shot at these guys.
That's exactly right. It was a huge final as well. 5 games in order to get Royal Youth here, but 5 games for Damwon as well, narrowly being able to take down Kingzone Dragon X. In our qualifier already, lots of bans coming in as the Gragas and the Alistar have been taken away, and the Pantheon and the Karthus to be removed on Damwon's side.
So I really want to focus in on one ban in particular from Royal Youth, and it's that Alistar ban. Thank you, someone finally banned Alistar away from Beryl. Beryl, the support of Damwon Gaming, is a phenomenal playmaking support, and when he is on Alistar, he is one of the best Alistars I have ever seen, and I keep asking, why does no one ever deny it away from him? So Royal Youth are like, we are not taking the chance. Pilot is our late game insurance policy. Some Jin Air Green Weeks fans may remember the name, and he's like, I'm not dealing with that Alistar in the lane.
And he was one of the original Jin Air Green Wings as well. Actually was a sub behind Captain Jack, a name that we all know for his cleanse skills, but that was a very long time ago. This guy is a tried and true Jin Air man. And of course, that comes with a lot of farming, a lot of Sivir. You know, this guy lives up to all of those expectations. The Renekton is going to be the first pick, as there's Canyon's Lee Sin to come out second round, and Nuclear is going to be on his ever so comfortable Kai'Sa.
To quote a very intelligent man, Bryce, whenever Lee Sin is in the meta, it is a good time, and I'm very excited to see it. Now, I'm curious, with the Rakan and the Xayah still left open, if that meant that they were going to try to prioritize the Xayah-Rakan duo up front, or if they were going to try to separate the Nautilus, because Nautilus Kai'Sa is kind of the go-to that you see in that bot lane, but right turn, I'm getting a Leona instead. I love Leona into Xayah. I think it's such a good matchup because A, Rakan is super telegraphed when he dashes for you, so it makes hitting that stun on Leona very easy. And then also, if you think about the Xayah ultimate, if you drop a well-placed Leona ultimate, you can force Xayah to ult before the team fight even begins.
Yeah, and then you can follow after, of course, with the Zenith Blade plus Shield of Daybreak with a bit of a buff. On this patch as well, we are now into the next ban phase, and Kiana and Akali went all the way through here. Of course, Akali being changed a lot over the last 3 patches, but this is Showmaker. This guy had probably one of the best plays in the LCK on that Akali, still been spamming it in solo queue, and yes, those scores are disgusting. If you see them, the Elise is going to be taken off the board, and once again, we've got Renekton priority, and then Elise sort of slips through.
I think there's a lot of scary mid laners that are still left open. Ryze, Cassiopeia, you just talked about the 2 assassins in Kiana and Akali, so I think there's a lot of options. In terms of who I'm going to back, it is going to be someone like Showmaker, who has this reputation of being either the second best or even best mid laner, depending on who you're talking to in the LCK.
Well, Talia is going to be taken off the board. Of course, Canyon rating this pick extraordinarily highly, currently smashing EU West players with it in solo queue. And it was very popular over in Korea before we made our way here. It was in the promotion tournament that Talia really jumped off the page. And the Quinn is going to be taken away from Nogari. Okay. I mean, you may as well just ban something against the guy, right? Because his champion pool is about 1 million champions.
It could also be a reflection that
Oh, God,
Renekton...
are we getting it game one? We are. Okay.
That Renekton is going up into the top side, and so trying to really pinch the ranged carries that can go up there like the Quinn and the Kennen.
Well, that is Nogari or Showmaker's Vladimir locked in. Nogari, the most famous Vladimir on this team, but Showmaker often picks it up and also manages to hard carry on the pick. But it was all about Nogari. This guy was the man that came up with the 20% CDR from your items that you rush, and then you can smash people from level 9. Everyone's been copying this guy with how he plays the Vlad.
And I think with this Kiana being locked in, it does mean that we should get an AP jungler. The AP Echo has slipped through, has yet to find a win at plans, but otherwise you have an abundance of physical damage that is coming out of Royal Youth's composition right now, so I think they really need to mix up their damage profile with this last pick.
See whether they can find one. Currently, 8 seconds to go. Still haven't really figured it out yet. The Karthus is banned away, the Elise is banned away, and the Talia is gone. So Silas is what they're going for. And we've heard a lot of talk about the Echo and why it hasn't been successful. My personal opinion is that people are trying to play it as if it's Silas. So you may as well just pick Silas, even if he has been nerfed into the ground.
Also, the interesting thing about the Silas pick up here is it meant that we got to wait until the last pick to see Showmaker pull out the LeBlanc, and now Royal Youth can start organizing their composition. By taking the Silas, it gave them another flex pick.
This is cute.
So they could put him in the mid lane and then throw Kiana in the jungle, but you're kind of getting the same thing from that, which is post-level 6 junglers. Kiana does have a window in level 4 where she can CC lock, especially if she has CC set up for herself, but otherwise it's usually about that big hitting ultimate.
Yep, I like it a lot. Got a little bit caught by the fact that we were looking for more AP, and you may as well just put it into the mid lane. So Sheol is going to be picking that one up. Interesting note as well came over from the LMS. Did Sheol into the mid lane and has only recently joined this Royal Youth squad. And if you have questions about his name, it actually just comes from his actual name. His name's Chung back in Korea. And so not all that imaginative, but we'll see whether he can get things done here on this Silas. Was a lot on Corki and Azir duty during their final. So good to see him on something with a little bit more agency, as Royal Youth will be up against Damwon Gaming in their first one. A tough ask, of course, and against Nogari's Vladimir. We'll see his keystones. Of course, there's been some information floating around about the amount of times that he takes Kleptomancy. Don't know whether you should necessarily take it into the Renekton as Vladimir, but he's done worse things.
I got a spoiler alert for you. He took Klepto.
Oh, God, of course he did.
So the Klepto King is here, and we are about to take the Rift. Again, we expect this to be topside-centric. A lot of spotlight on both of these solo laners. And can Royal Youth solo laners survive Damwon Gaming? Are we about to see someone speedrun the play-ins?
Yep, we'll see what Damwon can do. Here we go on to the Rift for game number 1 of day 2 of play-ins. It's Royal Youth taking on Damwon Gaming. So already, we're at level 1 for Oscarin, and it feels like it's tough for Royal Youth. Because you have to get over the sort of hurdle that's mentality, right? These names are coming in with so much weight behind them, even though this team only just qualified for the LCK. They've only been in 2019, and still Nogari, Showmaker holds so much weight. Showmaker already throwing himself into the enemy jungle.
He's also already picked up a ward from a Klepto proc, so you can see that Vladimir and LeBlanc are both running the Klepto Keystone. You can see the ward sitting in Showmaker's inventory, so I'm curious where he's going to place it to get some information on early pathing, because if you give Canyon early game pathing information, that's when you start to see these LCK junglers really destroy you, is how efficient they can be with any sort of knowledge.
Yep, also closer on this Kiana. We'll see how well he's going to navigate his jungle with Canyon potentially able to meet him at almost any point. Does like to play a little bit more aggressively with his paths on the Lee Sin. Likes to get things done. But Canyon, he's a counter ganker, right? That's how Canyon plays his game. That's why he got so many LCK MVPs, because he'd come to a lane that Nogara and Showmaker have set up for him, and he just picks up a kill. And so he walks away at the end of each game like 7-0-11 saying thanks guys for the carry, but still picks up an MVP. We'll see whether he's going to be able to have some agency himself to get things done, or whether he'll even need to, based on the laning phase that Damwon are going to have here.
Miankos talks about this a lot. When you're a jungler for a team that has such incredibly talented solo laners, it makes your job easy, but it also makes your job hard, because when they are playing forward, when they do need pressure and resources, you need to make sure that you're kind of balancing everything. If everyone wants to be aggressive all the time, then he needs to be on point.
Nuclear already with a flash on the bottom side of the map, had to get out of the way of that grand entrance. Pilot almost down to below half health, but that potion will get him back up over the top.
And let's kind of have some real talk while we are focused a little bit on Damwon before we move over to Royal. I think if you are going to try to attack Damwon anywhere, it would be in their bot lane. They typically do draft more defensive style bot lane, so obviously going kind of the opposite way there with Kai'Sa, Leona, and full combat summoners. This is maybe just trying to find that confidence on stage, and you are probably at a skill disparity between an LCK seed versus one of the emerging regions. But I think if you really wanted to pack firepower down here, this would be a way that you could try to break down Damwon.
And already they've got a flash, so in theory, certainly a place that you can attack this squad. Nuguri pretty safely under his turret, but that's a great trade there from Ahmed. And Nuguri does like to play with his health bar a lot, especially on the Vlad. Certainly can do that with the Hemomancer, able to transfuse his way back up to health, but does need to be a little bit careful, and that is not necessarily the way Nuguri plays the game of League of Legends. Showmaker being very aggressive here, but melee versus range, it is going to be a tough matchup here for the Sylas in the earlier stages.
And you can already see the pings down into the river, so Royal definitely catching out that Canyon is underneath. And you can see that Seal?
Yeah.
How would you?
Shiol would be how you technically pronounce it, but you can just do what feels best for you, Frosco.
I'm gonna follow your lead as the Korean expert here. Shield standing on the top side of the map, so definitely recognizing where his weak and strong side were.
Yep. Shield, of course, not playing in Korea so much. Had a brief stint in the LSPL over in China, and then moved over to the LMS for the majority of his career. Now he's here in Turkey, trying to make them proud against his home region.
And
Korea.
as we do now kind of turn our eyes on Royal Youth and what our expectations are for this team, it is really a top-focused team. Armand and Closer are kind of the duo that came to this team together, and so you'll usually see them spending a lot of time together. Shield and Closer don't necessarily have the same synergy. Shield is an excellent laner, but I think especially when post-lane phase breaks, if you keep your eyes on him, his lane assignments are sometimes fumbled. He's not quite as synced up with the team, so clearly mechanically very sound, but I think is still kind of suffering from some growing pains and finding his footing with this squad.
And I think that Royal Youth need to get some things done in this early laning phase, because as you can see, this is Kleptomancy on both of the solos from Damwon, and they're still winning. And that's bad. That feels really bad, as there's the flash in. They are getting something done here as Nuclear, no flash, no life. First blood for Turkey on the bottom side. Beryl just has to look on in horror as Closer comes down, and successful first game.
I mean, Closer was really just there for moral support. He's like, yeah, guys,
Great
get
moral
on.
support, though. That's first blood, right?
Didn't even get the assist there, as it was all just Pilot and Tolerant making good on the flash that they burned earlier. So well done there. We talked about this. If you just add a bunch of firepower into the bot lane, you can try to break Damwon's bot laners.
And also, talking about firepower, that's why they've added Tolerant here to this roster. They actually took out Dumbledoge in order to get this guy. Dumbledoge, of course, as everyone remembers, the guy that first-blooded Faker on Janna. Like, this guy was a Bard main, things like that. But Tolerant, he plays the Rakan, he plays the Nautilus, as we have a look at the replay.
Yeah, and it's kind of one of the coolest storylines for this team is Hold It.
Yeah, we're fighting again. Nuclear is at full health, but Beryl not so good. Flashes board, Shield of Daybreak, Tolerant, battle dancing to try and get out one more auto, and Nuclear's going to answer back.
TP?
Bottom side, we got teleports, we got a party on the bottom side. 3 versus 2, Nuclear's dead once again. Is it going to be a double? I think the answer's going to be yes, and Royal Youth are attacking the weakness of Damwon beautifully in this early game.
And the fadeaway on the other side of the map. Nuguri is just like, question mark, missing ping? I mean, to be fair, he's not going to follow that down as the Vladimir. You're looking at a double Doran's now. Executioners calling from the Renekton, so Armament was going to do a lot more damage. But what did he sacrifice on the other side of the map? Multiple waves getting shoved in. I'll take a look at the CS discrepancy. It's about 15 right now, so we'll see if that pays off for Nuguri in the farther on in the future as we go into this game.
I just really like that we're seeing exactly the Damwon gaming that we were expecting. The solo lanes are places that everybody else wants to get out of, and the bottom lane gets punished.
Yep, just overcommit there for the kill. They go back in, they try to play it. You can see, pretty much written in stone, TP behind him. Thanks very much.
Yep. the Ocean Drake is taken pretty comfortably there by Damwon with the help of a teleport back to lane from Showmaker. And he's going to move on forward also. So 12 CS going to be the lead for the LeBlanc. Remember, that is Klepto that's going to be expanding that as well. So despite the fact that we have a few extra kills going over to Royal, it is still going to be very close as far as gold.
But now it's about kind of where does Closer actually attack next on this map. You can continue to try to abuse the flashless bot lane. It's now Beryl who doesn't have his flash, but a tankier opponent. I kind of expected him more, again, to play around this top side of the map, but maybe he's looking at a Vladimir and he's like, there's no way I can try to break that. You know, Vladimir's a great champion into Renekton. It's really hard to tower dive him. He can basically just walk away, self-sustain, and sit into that lane. And you can see, again, that Armit's trying to itemize to put some sort of dent into Nuguri, but with the Klepto, with the CS lead, and now with the TP lead, it might just turn into a free farm lane, and we see it team fights.
The thing that I really like, though, about what Royal have is they have Closer now with 2-0-0 on that scoreline as a Qiyana jungle. So he's going to be extremely relevant moving into the mid game that Royal Youth are going to have to make good on.
Yeah, and I think the issue is that the dragon was actually taken. So when you have a Qiyana, she is so good in the river because of how it uses with her CC, and if there's a dragon live and available, the opportunity of actually being able to catch people out with your Qiyana rises because there's more reason for people to be in the river. Now, since the objective is gone, the lanes are pushed forward, there's just no gank access, Closer might actually just be sitting with this Qiyana like, I have to force a play, I have to do something, instead of having an opportunity to look for a big 5v5 around a dragon pit.
And is it going to be too dangerous to go for the Rift Herald, which is also near a river, just a more northerly one? 1.5 minutes until Shelly makes herself known on the Rift. Canyon looking for a potential game in the mid lane. Pulls on cooldown here as Noguri throws down a defensive Hemo Plague. Tides of Blood in. We'll see whether he actually turns it around as we've got a second kill for Damwon in the mid lane. As Canyon locks that one down. I think that may have just been a Q landing.
And if you've been watching Showmaker on the minimap basically the entire lane phase, he has been living underneath this tower, just constantly diving forward. I know LeBlanc is technically an assassin champion, but I like to think of her more so as a poke champion. She's just basically, if Nidalee Spear was a person, you're just constantly throwing it in, chunking people out.
I like that. I haven't heard that reference before. As Beryl, he's got the Eclipse running, as that's a lot of damage onto Tolerant, but Beryl very close to falling. Nuclear misses the Void Seeker, and that Q hasn't evolved, doesn't do a lot of damage. Tolerant just chugging some potions, will be okay, but Beryl not going to be able to go in as easily.
And even though Nuclear and Beryl still look like they're playing on the back foot here, because Showmaker has pretty much destroyed this matchup, Sylas isn't going to be able to do anything. Not being able to pivot from the mid lane and then try to rotate to your bot lane to continue to pile in on Xayah and Rakan's success is really going to slow down any sort of snowball that Royal Youth are trying to create. So again, it's the fact that they don't have the access to immediately play around a dragon when Qiyana's feeling really good, and it's the fact that they don't have mid lane priority to try to unlock Sylas and rotate out to their duo bot. So until this Rift Herald spawns and they break the lanes, which you can see that they're pulling Pilot and Tolerant up now, Royal Youth were kind of in a situation where we feel strong on Closer, but we can't attack with him.
Well, we've got a control ward here. It's going to spot out that Shelly has been attacked by 3 members of Royal Youth right now, and with the fact that Vladimir is able to push out this minion wave and head down to the river, we might actually have a bit of a fight. Beryl makes his way up, and Nuclear with Killer Instinct in hand is moving on over, so too dangerous for Royal Youth. They will pull away.
Yeah, this is absolutely a terrible setup from Royal Youth right now. If they force this and they find a pick and get lucky, they don't have priority in either top or mid lane, which means walking into this river is, you just don't control the space. So they need to get forced out of this and really respect the minion waves, force these waves out, and then slowly move in as a group.
Yeah, feels a little bit like taking a Rift Herald against Damwon Gaming is a bit of a bait. Let's just not do that one, as Damwon are considering doing it themselves.
I actually like this call better. If you look at your minimap, you can see the on the way things from Royal to trade the objective bot lane for the Renekton for the Herald. I think Tolerance just, again, keeping vision, does need to be respectful.
Yeah, at the same time, we've got all 3 lanes being shoved, in fact. Pilot topside as the quickness comes in. Shield of Daybreak's going to put a stop to it as Closer dives on in. That's a great ulti that's going to run around the Baron pit, but I don't think it's enough damage. That's the kill under the Qiyana, just destroyed as Pilot has to flash instantly. A defensive kick gets rid of Shield there on the backside as Tolerant will be running for the hills. And Damwon, they take Shelly and they take a kill and they'll walk away.
But they did pull up Armont. He had roam potential because Nuguri TP'd into the bot lane. He now has some access into a possible plate on mid lane, depending on how quickly Damwon can get back behind their mid lane tower.
I'm just scared though, because Noguri has a CS lead still, 10 ahead, and he's building very aggressively as Tolerant has to get the hell out of the enemy jungle.
And they're overstaying. Royal Youth actually need to back because the Infernal has spawned, and because their jungler, top lane, and support are still on the field, they're going to lose so much priority over the mid lane, which will bleed into this river control. I think the fact that they tried to overstay for that plate in the mid lane will actually cost them the Infernal.
Yep, and already 2 plates actually went to Noguri in the laning phase on the top side of the map. We've still got 2 minutes until they do break down as Armit looking for Nuclear. As if he stuns him, there's going to be Killer Instinct opportunity, but he's not going to be able to because there's just no one there to get any CC, so he's eaten up by the Culvermeek. Slicing and dicing, and look, Nuclear, that was on brand, but it's not necessarily what we want to be seeing here from our Dom 180 carry.
That's a welcome back to Europe.
Yeah, I think so.
TP.
Whoa, that's an aggressive teleport there into the Dom 1 jungle.
That's a double teleport.
Look at it as there's the grand entrance, immediately pulled. And Noguri says, that was cute, but we're not going to do anything. Speaking of not doing anything, Royal Youth just steal away the Infernal Drip.
Yeah, and here's the thing. You saw Damwon was set up. I was like, Royal Youth, they've overextended for that mid plate. They're now going to lose tempo on the field. They're not going to be able to set up for Infernal. But with Nuclear just kind of piecing out of the top lane and Armont able to walk from bottom all the way to top to kill him, kind of a head scratcher.
Yeah.
Damwon just looking at the Infernal. They had the space. Good staggered backs from Royal Youth to make sure that they had the numbers advantage to kind of peek in their head. And they end up walking away with it. So very well done from the Royal Youth squad.
Yep, and of course trading an Ocean Drake for an Infernal Drake makes our Royal Youth feel really good about how this one's gone. This plate may go begging, so we don't have very much longer before we can take that crockery off the map as Shelly pops down and should be able to get rid of the last ones up here as Nuclear probably should be scared of crocodiles, but does see him on a ward.
But in time to get the plates for Nuclear, which I think is the big thing right now because Kaisa was not doing well in between a lot of those items, just sitting with the BF sword. So that was some very much needed gold for Nuclear to pick up.
Yeah, it looks like it's not going to be the Manamune build as well coming out from Nuclear, so see whether that one's going to work out better than the previous Kaisa builds. It feels like you just build damage items and she's gonna do stuff, right?
I think it's also the versatility, kind of one of the reasons why we see Kaisa as such high priority with Xayah Kaisa is not only because everything got nerfed around them, but also the flexibility and build path for Kaisa that she can emphasize more towards a magic damage versus physical damage. And obviously when you're between a Vladimir and a LeBlanc, helps just to start stacking them BF swords.
Yeah.
That attack speed.
Or pickaxes, whichever ones you want, as
Just
long as they have some
at least
easy
2
stuff on them. Yeah, perfect. As Royal Youth, they're probably feeling pretty comfortable with how this game's gone so far. 4-3 as far as the kill score is concerned. They can't see the gold, so they're probably still fine about that. And the Infernal Drake is really going to be helping them as they move further and further into this game. But as we look at these compositions, I see a Vladimir in the hands of Noguri. And that just sounds like it's an ominous sign. You know, I've had to deal with this so many times in the LCK where Damwon, they fall behind, but in the end, the analysis is, but Noguri Vladimir.
When I watch Damwon team fight, I kind of think of it as a divide and conquer style of team fighting, that even if all 10 players are kind of stacked in a single area, you're basically looking at Nuguri, you're looking at Showmaker, and just how much those 2 players on specific key champions like you're talking about with Vladimir mean in the scheme of things. And I think with these types of mobility tools on virtually every single champion, save for the Leona, it's really difficult to try to contest with the LCK representative in a team fight.
But really fun to commentate. So when you come on over to be
action
the
happening
replacement
everywhere,
for good old Pubba Smithy, you'll certainly enjoy some more Damwon gameplay, and a lot of our other teams also just as good. You know, had to say goodbye to Jin, but otherwise everything's fine.
Well, it's perfect that you have to say goodbye to Jin because say hello to Pilot.
Hello, Pilot.
Pilot, formerly of Jin Air, came over into Royal Youth. He's kind of their late game insurance policy. Now, they basically don't feed resources into Pilot. Like, this game, he got ganked, but that's actually pretty unnatural. Obviously, a pretty well thought out strategy from the Royal Youth
I like the adaptation.
camp to be like, we're against Damwon. Where can we attack them? Let's try to attack them in the bot lane. Very well thought out there, but this guy is so good in team fights, and they have a very traditional kind of front-to-back 5v5 composition.
Well, here's Canyon doing what he does best, ganking for Noguri on the bottom side of the map. We'll see how aggressive Noguri's going to go to start this one up as the Q misses, and Canyon just walks on by. He says this is absolutely fine. Noguri says that he still wants it, and will get the Dominus out of the Renekton.
Yeah, but credit to Armont right there. He cleared out the minion wave, made sure that they couldn't look for the safe dive, and he's buying time for Royal Youth on the other side of the map. So, cross-map, Royal Youth out-trading. I don't know what he was doing.
Solar Flare used for vision, maybe? Oh no, it's just because it was running out. It was hijacked. Silas has been out for so long that it gets a little bit perplexing. Okay, that's absolutely fine. Xiao just getting the run out of that particular ultimate. Damn, hijack confuses the heck out of me. It's a bothersome ability for a commentator.
You're like looking for Leona. Where
I
is
know,
she?
right? Where is she? She was in the mid lane.
I think it was against the minion wave. It was just,
Yeah.
you know,
There
some
you go.
extra.
Just insert random excuse here, basically.
I got you.
Yeah. I've missed this. Okay, Nuclear and Beryl in the mid lane. Showmaker has eclipsed the gold that had been closer earlier on, but he's fallen down by about 1,200.
Is that really fair, though, when two people are running Klepto?
Look, Klepto's, it's going to get a nerf, all right? You heard the stories about Nogari. We've got an ultimate into the wall, looking for the one-shot, and closer finds it all too easy onto Canyon, and that's not all they're saying here as Beryl goes down to about half health. Showmaker trying to return the favor as Nogari does get forward. Big stun there, finds the backline as Beryl goes golden, but there's a Vladimir now here. Kiana gets a second kill. The Hemo Plague onto 2, but they've moved out of the way of the Vlad. And Damwon, they just lose a couple of kills and don't get anything for it.
Yeah, so well done there. Shout out to the bot lane from Royal Youth, Tolerant, who set that play up, or excuse me, Closer, who set up the play, and then Tolerant and Pilot following it up. Beautiful callback on the feathers. Massive damage on 2. Pilot's like, I wouldn't have gotten Jin relegated if I was still there. This is the best you got.
And now he has a 32 CS lead as well, so he's really giving it to Clear here as we check out this early game fight.
I believe a supreme display of talent as Canyon was baited by the ward.
Yeah, that was definitely the namesake.
Yeah, Kiana's a fun champion. She comes equipped with everything. Assassin potential, CC, cup holders.
Oh, the Blade Caller was just beautiful onto the two members of Damwon, and they just didn't have any opportunities to answer any damage back, especially when you don't have Phase Rush on the Vlad. I mean, this is the most greedy Vladimir that you could possibly have. So Nogari doesn't have all of those tools yet. Will have Spellbinder in this build eventually, but doesn't have it yet.
But you can see it on Royal Youth's faces, because now you can start to taste it, Max.
Nogari's got a Nomad's Medallion, Frost.
Max.
What's happening?
No, you can start to taste the upset.
Oh, yeah.
Are you nervous yet?
No, I'm not nervous. I really like Royal Youth. Don't worry, I'm a happy-go-lucky guy. My glass is always half full, Frosco.
So, kind of going back to Royal Youth, the cool thing about this team is that collectively, they never really were standout stars. They finally had their finals appearance, they took down Supermassive, but they've kind of been mid-tier players for a very long time, and no one was really expecting them to amount to much. So to be kind of on the cusp, where yes, still got down in gold, but definitely looking very proactive, taking bites out of Damwon Gaming, like, that is a Cinderella story in the making for this TCL team.
Well, Big Flash out from Pilot. Decides to invest that one because, of course, the ultimate just not off cooldown yet. So 3,000 gold is almost the lead here for Damwon. And it's all Kleptomancy. And yes, Nogari has augmented his build by adding a cool hat. He's always very sun smart when he plays these AP champs towards the top side. Gets towards that hat as quickly as possible, needing a wide brim.
So he's going to hit like a truck.
Yes.
Which means that the potential win condition for Damwon at this point is eventually it's going to be really difficult to deal with this Vladimir into a side lane. And by eventually, it may actually even be now. I'm curious how the trades are going to go, especially with the death cap completed. And so that means that as Royal Youth are kind of getting stalled around this mid tower, as Nuguri chooses, either I can try to 1v1 hard push bottom, or I can keep pushing it down and then cutting in towards that mid lane and then forcing a fight with the numbers advantage as someone like the Silas is walking down to pick up the wave. And these are kind of the windows that Damwon are looking for. So Royal Youth need to really be on their toes and recognize, okay, anytime we don't see Nuguri in that side lane, we need to be so respectful and back up because Damwon are looking to strike, to pounce.
Well, at the moment, it's Royal Youth that are looking for it. The quickness was used, Tolerant just running forward. And Damwon not as tolerant themselves, just didn't want anything to do with that Rakan.
Even though, oh, I'll hold it.
Yeah, that's the chain. It is going to not register. Okay, pops back just in the nick of time.
Even though no one is being caught and there's not a big team fight, look at the CS lead. Damwon are doing a far better job.
Just Nogari trying to start it. Pilot does get slowed down, but remember, does still have the ultimate, and they just brute force the outer turret in the mid lane, not wanting any more, unless Showmaker throws the longest chain and hits someone, but doesn't.
And again, back to the CS. You've got 200 versus 163. You have 190 versus 155. Outside of the 80 carries...
I see you didn't go any further than that.
Outside of the 80 carries, it's basically your two champions that can go out into a side lane. Damwon Gaming have been doing a much better job of picking up the resources in the side lane, and then, like you said, brute forcing into that mid lane. And while they are forcing that that brute force, that means that Royal Youth don't have their carries out into a side lane picking up that farm. That's so much golden experience that's dying and that they're losing. And then over time, Dan1 Gaming are just getting stronger and stronger and stronger, getting more resources more often with a better scaling comp.
And I want to talk about Royal Youth in this instance as well, because Dan1 Gaming do this to basically every LCK team as well, especially after Rift Rivals when they really started to hit their stride. So a shout out to Royal Youth here, being able to basically go into about 20 minutes into the game at a similar standing to a lot of our LCK representatives, which is a shout out to Turkey and how good they are as a region and how much they've been improving over the years. Is Frosk, are you okay?
I was very scared. I was like, that's a bold call.
No. I just think that Turkey has been steadily improving. We'll see whether they can prove it here today. So they have a lot of Baron vision. That's a decent grand entrance. Canyon just insta-pops in, though. Nothing that he can do about that one. Supreme display of talent might be a problem, but Nuclear has the heal, keeps himself alive. Closer, running the hell out of there, as now we've got two different fights, and it's being won for the moment. Shield trying to get the work done. Kingslayer is going to keep him healthy as low health bars. On Dan1's side, it's pretty clean, but Nuclear is going to go down. They're chasing after the Croc, but it looks like he's created enough distance. As Showmaker pops back to the distortion, destroys their Silas, and finally Dan1 have found a severe team fight win.
And that is one of the Dan1 team fights that we were looking for. Again, so much mobility on all of these different champions. These team fights get so hectic. It's going over walls, it's in and out of bushes, it's flying underneath people, flashing on top of them. You have to be ready at any moment's notice to change the course of battle with what these guys choose to do. And it started with Royal Youth looking at a flank, and you look at any other team, you're like, yeah, that's a perfect flank right now. They're overextended, they're separated, we can just pounce and kill them, and they don't get the chance.
Nope, not a chance. And I said severe teamfight win. I think it was actually relatively even, but it was one of the first times that Dan1 have actually been able to find a team fight or an opportunity where kills are happening where they've come out on top so far this game.
Yeah, and I do want to give credit to Armut right there. He tried his hardest on that Renekton. Looked like he might have turned the fight, but again, the mobility came in and it was slivers of health from Dan1 to walk away. Caster curse. Sorry, Armut.
Yeah, you certainly didn't need to talk about that one. That was pretty clear cut. Land the first chain, and then the crocodile was certainly dead. That's a handbag.
I like shoes.
Bottom side. You like shoes? I know you like shoes.
Yeah.
I follow you on Twitter, don't worry. I think you like shoes too much. Has someone spoken to you about this?
No, not yet.
Okay. We'll see. Okay, Canyon is going to be soloing another Drake. Dan1 just love their oceans. That's the one little infernal that's probably, in a lot of analysts' eyes, better than 3 ocean Drakes.
I mean, if we're constantly ducking in and out of fights, I'd give it to the ocean.
I guess it's all right as Supreme Player talent. And see you later, Showmaker. Closer comes down. That's what a Kiana can do. She can just stop you from being able to play League of Legends.
And frankly, what you doing there, Showmaker? He's like, I'm safe.
Split pushing bottom lane, I think, is the technical term, as Tolerant going to miss everything in the mid lane underneath this outer turret. Beryl just wandering backwards. That was his strategy.
Maybe it's one of those situations where you're so used to Kiana being banned that you just forget how quickly she can move on a map.
Well, Beryl actually out of position here. Not going to find too much, but does get the Zenith blade, which is largely defensive, not defensive enough, as he's taken down by Pilot. He says thank you, as the Q is going to land onto Shield, but not going to follow it up just yet. Now, you were talking about, the Jin Air Pilot, and I was talking about him as well, but my favorite iteration of Pilot was the MVP Pilot. Wasn't because he was laning with a guy called Max, which is also my name, and that's pretty cool.
The Scion support?
Yes, that gets quadra kills on the Scion. Yep. Guys are pretty damn good at that champion.
How's
but also
my resume looking here? I got the LCK history.
Oh, man, you're even trying. Bryce didn't give me anything when he was on the desk. Thank you so much, Frosco. You're definitely ahead of him. So I'm moving your resume up the stack as we speak.
No, I'm listening, Pilot, yes.
Yeah, so Pilot, when he was playing for MVP, he sort of subbed in and out for Maha during that particular split. And this was an MVP that was struggling a lot, as we will watch closer, just one-shot Showmaker. We call this gameplay, ladies and gentlemen. Not a lot of it available there on the bottom side, but a huge bounty going to Closer.
I mean, Closer's a cool story because I think, again, not a lot of people were looking at him. His summer split, he really popped off in a lot of different instances and started finally getting a lot of the acclaim that he needed in the TCL. I think he's, to me, the X factor or the difference maker. I know that, again, they rely on Pilot. Pilot is such a strong ADC in the league. But for me, Closer was the make or break difference for while Royal Youth are here.
That is another pop. Canyon eventually goes golden as we've got a huge ult into the wall once again, but Kiana's dead as the supreme display of talent goes down. Hemoplague into the backline, but Beryl's already dead, and Pilot with a double kill, but Noguri at full health. Keep your eye on him. All of the damage still up for Damwon as Nucleus flashing into 3 people, but is still going to survive. And Damwon are angry. They don't want to lose team fights like this, but it's an even one in the end.
And you can see those windows where Royal Youth are like, we've got it, we've done them, we've beat them, we can transition into a Baron, but then it's like the final bosses show up and do this.
For Pilot, nope, not going to find him.
This is a 2-man army. Showmaker and Nuguri right now.
Yeah, it's basically all the champions that you need at this point in time, especially with Noguri so incredibly accelerated. That Nomad's medallion getting even more value. He's got a 400 gold bounty, a 67 CS advantage over his Crocodile opponent.
I think the idea of kind of falling back to a champion like Vladimir, which is a comfort pick for him, but also having that scaling potential in a tournament where there are so many new teams you don't necessarily know how they're going to play is actually pretty ingenious and very safe, because then you know that you will always have that scaling option. You will always have that win condition.
I just really love that Royal Youth have done their homework with how they played the early game and with who they're focusing and who they're really trying to capitalize on, because Canyon out of position immediately, Royal Youth pounce. And yes, it was an even team fight, but that doesn't matter at the end of the day, because this is a matchup where you are considered the underdogs anyway. And if you can just keep playing it out, try and get Pilot to a point where he can theoretically carry, especially on a Xayah who has so many defensive options, certainly is a way that they can win this game.
And you're also then that much closer for Pilot to really start popping off. Had to diverge into the Hex Drinker, obviously, because Showmaker and this Vladimir are massive problems. But outside of kind of that stepping stone, he is approaching that 3-item. I know there are so many wards.
And there's Magi Soul Stealer on Showmaker. He just wants to create a library. He's already got his Morellonomicon. He needs another book. Where's an Amp Tome? Needs to sell that Control Word, I think. Just get as many books in there. He needs to be a studious mid laner.
I do.
But that's a pretty aggressive decision, given the fact that he just got one-shotted by Closer earlier on.
I would say it's a confident decision.
Yeah, confident.
I think that's the word I'll use.
I think that's the nice word to describe what it could potentially mean, but we'll go with it for the moment.
That's also a really confident distortion over the wall.
Yeah.
So the vision and the vision denial is so important for Royal Youth, because we saw how explosive Closer's damage is and their potential to just blow someone up. And that relies on denying the vision so you can get the jump on someone. Surprise, the trap was here all along. But if they're unable to contest the waves and then lose priority over the area and then Damwon Gaming come in, like, you're losing so much gold placing all of those control wards, and then you have to do the terrifying thing like this where you're walking into fog of war, just, oh, I hope they're not in here.
Yeah, and at the moment, you've got Noguri destroying minion waves on the top side of the map, and he's got a Void Staff now, and moving towards this mid lane. Amit probably not wanting to go up against this gentleman whatsoever.
But I think this is actually a really good example.
Showmaker.
I'll hold it.
Tolerant, gonna get out of the chain range as he does get tagged.
This is a really good example of how Royal Youth are a bit tunnel visioned and a bit fixated on the fight. Like, they know we want to make the pick, we want to stack all of our CC, we want to immediately blow someone up, but they're not thinking about the setup. And it's Damwon Gaming who are just going back into mid lane, getting priority, shoving it out, and then moving in and clearing out the vision. And because Royal Youth aren't taking account of their lanes, they're losing control over things like an Infernal. They're losing control over all of that money that they invested into wards. And it's really draining on their economy right now.
The thing I'm seeing out of Damwon, though, is almost lax play. It's like they're relaxed, like they're on a holiday. Like, because it has been relatively slow. They've been losing things in the early game, but what they're relying on is just being better macro players as the game goes on, and you can see that by the fact that they just shut them out of the Infernal Drake. They managed to get all of that free vision around the Baron Pit with little to no resistance on Royal Youth's side, and they have had control of these side waves much more effectively as Closer tries to do it once more. I don't think it's going to work, though, as Canyon just closes the gap, and Amit's going to have to slice his way out. Shield also trying to abduct, but that's a really nice hijack solar flare to stop him from dying.
And the difference then was the hourglass. Picture perfect there from Showmaker to make sure that he absorbed a lot of that damage and a lot of that time. Had the chain, came out of it, and just blasted them. That's now the jungler dead and Damwon Gaming on the Baron.
Yep, they have started it up, and that's a lot of damage onto this Baron as well. Already down to half health as Amit Dominus pre-popped to start this one up. He's sliced in, he's dicing out as the Baron is dead for Damwon Gaming. The solar flare comes in, he tries to commit to it, but the Crocodile was already dead, and Closer still in the death chamber from earlier. Damwon just walk in, take a Baron, even out the kill score, and it's like another day at the office.
And I like the fact that Royal Youth were trying to look for those continuous picks. They had worked for them over the course of the game. Kiana shows up into a side lane, you blow someone up. But this time around, the itemization was there, the reaction time was there from Showmaker, and it was the difference maker into finally cracking open this game for the Baron. There's the hourglass. Close is like, oh wait, he's still alive.
Yeah. Got to check for that timepiece before you go for these sort of plays. You can do it once, but not going to be able to do it again. As Royal Youth not out of it just yet. 6,000 gold is now the lead at 32 minutes into this game. But Nogri, he's got his Spellbinder now. He's got a full build. Nomad's Medallion, definitely part of it. This is how you add the Korean League of Legends to it. I loved Frostmancy for this case. That was facetious, by the way. Didn't love Frostmancy at all. But you get more wards. We love playing with wards, Frosco. As we've got another team fight as well, and that is a very dead Showmaker.
Didn't check the time.
A little bit overly ambitious there and didn't actually have his timepiece available as there's the Feather Storm. So much damage, but Nuclear dive bombs into the back line and gets himself the triple.
Was that really Nuclear's damage, though, or was that...
No, it was not, but he was the one that had his name on the triple kill, all right?
I'm pretty sure that was the Vladimir damage. You saw the Spellbinder, the Void Staff, the hat, and the timepiece come out, and this boy hits like a truck. Look at that.
Yep, this is a 1v2, not one, mate. Oh, dear. Nogri just turns around and kills him. That can be your shoes this time. That's what the Crocodile's turning into as Nuclear turns up towards the bottom side, and Closer is already out of there. 1 kill away from an ace as the inner turret is going to be falling bot side and mid. And now the inhibitor turret going to be the next one on the chopping block.
And what felt like a very back and forth game in terms of the fights, the fact that Royal Youth did not go silently, that they kept trying to stand up, take their shots at Danwon Gaming, got a couple of cheeky ones in there on the bot lane, but eventually, like you said, Danwon just fell back to their macro, fell back to their micro, and are now just brute forcing this game away from Royal Youth.
Yeah, it's looking pretty scary. 2 inhibitors go down, and now all of a sudden, that gold lead has ballooned to the tune of 11,000, and no longer do we have the advantage with the Infernal Drakes because that was evened out. Tolerant still actually looking for more as that's a solar flare. It's going to land onto Pilot. Can they kill him before he can? Yes, they certainly can. 4 members down here, and you don't go chasing up a very dark lane when there's potentially Damwon Gaming members waiting, and now it looks like they might be just trying to go for the end of the game. Only 1 member down, but it is Pilot. He's certainly a lot of the damage here for this squad. Did have those 3 items that we talk about so often. And now the siege is on. Tolerant tries to find the CC, but he's not going to be able to. Nogri goes into his pool, but Tolerant's still alive for now. Nexus turret not so lucky. Still, 1 more does remain, and Canyon makes his way back in. He's got a GA. He can actually use that to try and get aggressive onto this last remaining turret.
They want a style.
Oh, yes. As in he goes, he's in the fountain, tries to get the 1-shot onto Closer, but can't actually do it. The Nexus turret not going to be so lucky as now the Nexus is that focused on one. It took longer than a lot of people expected, but they will be able to win their first game at Worlds. This team qualifies in 2019 and game 1 down at World Championships.
Not everything went according to plan, though.
No,
and
certainly
I think
didn't.
That's the takeaway. I definitely agree with you that it felt like when you were watching them perform that it did feel lax. It didn't feel as focused or as tight as we saw in the regular split or in the LCK playoffs. So I'm curious kind of what the final form of Damwon looks like. And if they're maybe experimenting a bit. It was a very different look from the bot lane than we typically see. They usually like to go more for that defensive option.
Yeah, they also looked like they were having fun, though, right? It looked like a Damwon Gaming that were comfortably playing the laning phase and taking double Kleptomancy in their solos, Vladimir into Renekton, which is something you wouldn't necessarily want to do. And yes, they dropped a couple of kills, but did it ever feel like they weren't going to win? I don't think so.
Well, they never really fell out of the gold lead once they had it.
It's because they kept taking gold from their opponents, actually just pickpocketing the whole time.
Klepto ruins stats. That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
On the other side, though, Royal Youth, I think we got a couple of really good looks from them.
Yeah.
I think the team fighting looked really solid. I think you are starting to see some of those holes in some of the fundamentals in terms of, you know, prioritize the lanes first and then move into the setup versus getting a little bit too tunnel focused on, okay, what does my champion want to do? How do we play out this team fight? Let's set up for the team fight. And then you kind of get caught in your setup.
I just think the first 20 minutes of that game was actually really clean from Royal Youth. And yes, they got sort of outplayed micro-wise in the laning phase, but if you can keep up that level of just League of Legends in general and play that style of game, you're likely to get out of this group, right? You don't need to beat Damwon to get to the next stage, and you're guaranteed to not have them in a best of 5. So I think it looks great for Royal Youth as far as moving up in this group.
Yeah, and I want to credit Pilot and Closer. I think Closer had a phenomenal game on the Kiana there. Armont as well as kind of a honorable mention with some of his Renekton turns into the team fighting. So I think there's a lot of good things to take away for Royal Youth, and now I'm just that much more excited for the potential Flamengo versus Royal Youth showdown.
Yep, welcome to the Damwon Gaming Gold Graph. It's not like what we were seeing yesterday with Warangelis doing all of the damage for his team on his Ezreal. This is what it looks like when it comes to Damwon. It is all about Nuguri and Showmaker. And yeah, of course, Nuguri just having a really good time transfusing a Renekton over and over again.
And we take a look at some of the highlights there. I think this is where you really got to see the Vladimir damage. Now, it was Nuclear that picked up the triple kill, but look at Nuguri on the bottom of your screen, that mini-map. He's coming in, and when he comes in, he's going to hit really hard.
Yeah. Tides of Blood after the flash, and I don't even think he needed a Hemoplague right there. Probably could have just killed them anyway. Yeah. Look, it's just what happens. And Nuguri's Vladimir has been banned in the majority of games, regardless of which patch it is. So just definitely a scary thing, and we'll probably see it on ban lists from now on.
I would think so. Now I just hope that we finally get to see him face off against the Shy. That would be...
Hey, that's going to be coming up potentially
I know, I'm like
in a
looking
little
way
bit
ahead.
more time. You're certainly getting a little bit ahead of yourselves. But let's see what Damwon's top laner has to say after that win.
Thank you very much, guys, and thank you for joining me after your first victory. Congratulations on the first game on the world stage. Talking to Royal Youth before the game, they didn't think they stand a chance against you, and yet they made them run. They made you guys run. So what do you think about your first performance on the world stage?
우선 롤드컵 오셔서 첫 승리 축하드립니다. 사실 딱 경기를 봤을 때 로얄 유스가 우린 진짜 안 되는 경기다라고 생각했는데 사실 초반 때 좀 힘들었어요. 어땠나요, 경기하시면서?
일단 약간 저희가 좀 생각했던 것보다는 좀 뭔가 고전 약간 좀 킬 교환도 되고 약간 그런 장면이 있었는데 저희가 약간 좀 좋아하는 픽도 가져왔고 좀 자신 있는 상태여서 질 것 같진 않았어요.
Yeah, it's true that there were some kill trades in the early game, but we are confident because we got the picks we wanted, so we're pretty confident during this game.
Oh, glad to hear that. Now, as we mentioned on broadcast, you guys are the first LCK team to go through play-in. But for me, you're also the first LCK team to go from Challengers Korea to the world stage in 1 year. So how do you feel about this?
올해 LCK 팀 중에 플레인부터 시작하는 팀은 담원이 처음이에요. 그리고 담원은 특히 챌린저 코리아에서 LCK 롤드컵까지 바로 한 번에 오셨는데 어떤가요? 플레인에서 플레이하는 느낌이?
일단은 좀 예선전부터 한다는 것 자체가 일단 저희 입장에서는 저희가 이제 아무래도 신생팀이다 보니까 이렇게 좀 경험을 쌓는다 약간 이런 생각을 좀 많이 하고 하는 것 같고요. 이런 부분 좀 긍정적으로 작용하는 것 같아요.
We're actually we think positively about this, like starting from the play-in because we're a new team. So it's a really good opportunity for us to get experience.
So as a new team and as rookies in this competition, how do you see the play-in stage? Are you going to make it through easily?
그럼 신인으로서 딱 플레이를 봤을 때, 그룹을 봤을 때 어떠신가요? 이길 것 같으세요? 쉽게 올라갈 것 같으신가요?
저희가 그래도 쉽게 올라갈 거라고 생각하고 있어요.
Yeah, I think we're going to move on like pretty easily.
All right, very confident. Thank you very much, Nuguri, for the interview. Thank you, Hajin, for the translation. And we're going to take a break, and in a few minutes, we'll come back for game 2.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Flash, no life, first blood. We've got a party on the bottom side. 3 versus 2. Nuclear's dead once again. Is it going to be a double? I think the answer is going to be yes. And Royal Youth are attacking. Kingslayer's going to keep him healthy as low health bars. On Damwon's side, it's pretty clean, but Nuclear is going to go down, then chasing after the Croc. But it looks like he's created enough distance. And Showmaker pops back to the distortion. A little bit overly ambitious there and didn't actually have his timepiece available as there's the Feather Storm. So much damage, but Nuclear dive bombs into the back line and gets himself the triple. Now the Nexus is that focused on when it took longer than a lot of people expected, but they will be able to win their first game at Worlds.
And welcome back to the State Farm Analyst Desk for our next game, Mega Esports versus Hong Kong Attitude. The LMS third seed is back in the play-in stage, but they do come in with far less fanfare. There is a lot to prove, and in fact that's true for a lot of teams in this group, as this was one of the groups that had lesser known teams and players and regions, and you have to think maybe this is where some of the surprises can come.
Yeah, I mean, this was sort of the group that we said it's sort of wide open as to who actually comes out first. So I think for Hong Kong Attitude in particular, this first game needs to be a statement win from them if they want to try and like put their name on the bill to come in number one.
Yeah, absolutely, especially given how previous Worlds performances have gone for the LMS. And this team in particular, you know, we've gone over it already, but the 2017 failure to come out of the group in first place did mean a top of best of 5 and crashing out in the play-in stage. This is a team that wants to regain a group status and be able to do it for the LMS.
And in particular, I do think the story of Mission is interesting because he was on this team in 2017 when they went to Worlds last. Then in 2018, they actually traded him away. They brought in Chawei, much more of like a legendary mid laner in the LMS, but he came back in 2019 after they weren't able to go the distance last year and now make it back to the international stage once again.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other Crash, the other person you have to look at on this team is Crash. He's a very proactive early game jungler, does like to get down into that bottom lane, however, can appear to be very desynced from the rest of the team at times. I know you don't like the drafting around it. I don't like his decision making when he has those drafts. Sometimes it's just a little bit wonky for Crash.
Yeah, for me, I'm like, he is a good early game jungler, but a lot of times they don't actually draft lanes around him that he can play through. They'll put him on like an early proactive Elise, but then give him 3 losing lanes. And those are the games where I'm like, well, if I'm in his shoes, I can like no one can do anything differently in those games.
You say that, but you can also just not wander up to random dragons and start hitting them when you have a cast in the mid laner with no priority. But I think this is one of those players in Crash and Mission that if they get aligned, if they get on the same page, they do have good map impact early.
Well, we have to see how they play today. It's quite interesting because when we talk about Ananasek and we talk about some of his bolder moves, it's slightly different words, but it kind of sounds like similar types of styles in terms of decision making. We'll see what impact he has. I want to get back to that a little later. Their opponents today is going to be the representatives from the LST. It's Mega Esports. Now, this is a team that will pack a lot of very familiar names in terms of their player roster, if the team itself may not be too well known to our world's audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Bangkok Titans, Ascension, now Mega, whatever you want to call them, Rocky, G4, and Lloyd, Pop and Dale down in that bottom lane. And this is a lineup that has been coming to these international events for the LST region since like 2015. I remember great matchups between themselves and Oceania's the Chiefs, and it was G4 back then that was a star player, and it is still G4 on the Assassins that have so much of the early game potential for this team.
Yeah, you can go back even deeper too, because since 2014, G4 and Lloyd have been playing together. Yeah. That duo has been unchanged. Now, Lloyd hasn't been in the same position, so he's been flipping to like the left and right hand sides between jungle and AD carry around G4, but it always has been this duo that has been so good. And for G4 in particular, he is the only Thai mid laner to ever play at Worlds.
Unbelievable. Now look, this is speaking from experience, right? But you can't teach old dogs too many new tricks, right? So who are the star players on this mega roster that we should be looking out for today?
So I am always looking at this bottom lane. Now after MSI, when Lloyd was down in bot lane, they switched him up to the jungle and brought in Daewoo into the bot lane. This lane actually gets relatively little jungle attention early on, but you will be hard pressed to actually go back through the VODs and find a lane that this duo has lost at all in the LST. They have been absolutely fantastic, and in particular, when they're on like self-serving champions, like the Ezreal Yuumi in particular was one of my favorites, they will just take over games single-handedly.
Yeah, and Pop is one of those players that has very explosive moments and looks for his times in games to be able to take over. Pretty rare from the support position, but is able to get it done, and is certainly one of the star players of this team.
One thing I love about this particular group is the teams within the region and how much history there is between them. VCS, LST, LMS. We are expecting the VCS team to come out on top. We're anticipating this is the only group where the Pool 2 seed could come out. And when you think of the impact that has, and you think of how much pressure there is on the Hong Kong Attitude as the LMS representatives to be fighting not only for their own team's honor, but their region as well.
I mean, just look at those numbers. 9 KD, first in damage share, damage per minute, CS per minute. This is what I'm talking about. So if there's a lane to be concerned about as an LMS fan, it is this bottom lane for sure.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I kind of want to talk about, we're talking about the former GPL region. These guys all played together. However, there was a divergence in style. The LMS did slow down, especially as people like Maple and Casa left the region, went over to the LPL. Now we have kind of the VCS and the LST that play at breakneck speeds, play for the team fight, play for the early skirmish, whereas the LMS is a little bit more slow, is a little bit more control, try and pick their poison a little bit more. So I think stylistically, even though we talk about these teams as being regionally very close, there is differences to look for.
Yeah, there absolutely is, and especially when you look at how these teams have evolved. And one of the discussions that I'm looking at a lot more is we find LCK in the playing stage for the first time ever. When we start looking at some of the math and the numbers, it'll be interesting to see at what point could the VCS overtake the likes of LMS. And LMS have been on the decline. So let's turn our attention to the LMS. You've already said a lot about how Mega and their bottom lane could be a problem here for Hong Kong Attitude. How do Hong Kong Attitude fend off Mega to look for a win?
Right, so Hong Kong Attitude are always, in my eyes, a team that loves to seek out team fights. Now, this isn't a team that loves to play around their side lanes. It's very much just take care of those side lanes and then quickly run into the mid lane, look for fights all over the map. It doesn't matter if it's mid lane, objectives, they look for these 5v5s. Now, one thing that they don't necessarily do is all the preparation in front of that. Like the deep vision control, the knowing, is this a fight where we have a numbers advantage? I don't think they actually care too much about that. They're just a very confident team where regardless of if it's 5v4 or a straight up 5v5, they are more than willing to take that even fight.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that if you're going to look for a player outside of the stars that we've talked about to step up, 3Z or Z, depending on where you're from, is one of those top laners that I think has actually had pretty good performances. I typically measure LMS top laners against Ziv because he has always been there. In their best of 5 versus AHQ, this was a player that had a mixture of good and bad performances, some botched turret dives, but also some successful laning phases. And Rocky has been a little bit of a liability at previous international tournaments for this lineup. So I think that this is an opportunity to open up the map, get a side lane pushing, and then be able to force them into the 5v5 team fight.
I do believe also that both solo laners for for HKA Hong Kong Attitude, 3Z and Mission led the league in terms of solo kills for their roles too. So these are two players that like to play for those 1v1s and make plays happen. What I have seen as a potential problem for them is actually when they are in side lanes, especially Mission, he likes to go for plays, and sometimes teams will just like send 3 people down there. He thinks it's an honorable duel. It's not.
Okay, we're going to find out how these teams and individuals play. We're going to head back on stage to meet our combatants. Nice.
I appreciated that.
Microphone is not on.
And let's welcome their opponents from the LMS, HKA. Now one more time, give it up for Mega Esports and HKA.
Thanks so much, Law, and welcome to Game 2 of the day. For the caster desk, it is, of course, Frosco and I back at it again. And when Game 1 was Royal Youth taking on Damwon, certainly a David versus Goliath, I can't necessarily pin where these two teams are going to come up against one another here today.
And I totally understand where Spawn and Ender are coming from on the analyst desk when we look at this group, and it's basically the revenge of the GPL. You've got the LST, Southeast Asia representative in Mega, you have the VCS, Vietnam representative, and you have the LMS. And it's kind of like an old school throwback for hardcore like League of Legends fans to see these teams and these players who are very familiar with each other really clash on an international stage. So that's super exciting. Yeah. But I'm not quite sure yet to pull hope from the LMS. I think when you have access and scrim potential, there's a lot of friendliness between the LMS and LSPL, LDL, LPL, whatever you want to call it, and that kind of access to scrimming those types of players. I think sometimes at this level, it's just good enough to be the better mechanical player. Now, I'm not 100% sold on that, but I'm not ready to say that HKI are an underdog here, that VCS or Mega are just going to get blown out of the water, but I still think HK are the favorites.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you sort of have to go in with that mindset and then be ready to pivot, you know, based on how these teams are going to go. Because I think that a lot of people don't necessarily know where these regions are going to stack up against one another just because of how much turmoil there has been. And of course, change going to continue happening as we move into 2020. But I'm just excited to see some of these old names back. And of course, you know, Pop, we're talking about Pop on the analyst desk there as well. And a little bit of a fun fact, I commentated him in the Kesper Cup earlier in the year. He was on a team with Doran, now playing top lane for Griffin, of course, and with Plex there, who's over in the LPL. Really talented players, and was the first KEG team to actually win a game, win a match in the Kesper Cup, which is huge news. And Pop is very talented, although very young.
I agree. I think Pop just needs a bit more experience underneath him, but a player to certainly watch. Now, as we head into Draft Select, for our brand new viewers who have never seen these types of teams, Mega are your Thai team. They came through the LST as the Thai representative, and they have the Thai trio in Rocky, Lloyd, and G4 on the top side of the map, and then a Korean duo in Daewoo down there, whereas HKA, obviously our LMS representative, have never been to an LMS finals, but we're the team that finally put the nail in the coffin for the Flash Wolves. They went through the Flash Wolves in the regional qualifier to be here. They are the only major pool C to never make it, or to actually be denied making it out of play-ins. So there's a lot of
yeah, some pride on the line here for HKA. And speaking of things on the line, on the top line of your screen, as you can see right there already, most of the bands coming in, Gragas, Olaf, and Kiana, very jungle-focused on Mega's side, as the Pantheon, of course, going to be taken away. The Elise going to follow up as five junglers, in theory, have been taken off the board, with the LeBlanc from the mid lane going to be the only one to buck that trend.
And I am in complete alignment here. Take away everything from Crash. You heard Ender talk about this guy on the analyst desk. While Crash isn't necessarily always set up for success, I think that he is kind of the consistent shining light on the HKA squad for me. He's not necessarily a dueling-oriented jungler, but when he sees his opportunity, he'll take it. But he is just a very solid, mechanically gifted player.
Yes, certainly was. I don't want to remember back to too much information about Crash. Of course, was on Longju before he decided to go to a whole bunch of different regions. And didn't necessarily do the things that we wanted Crash to do when we were so excited about him, but already so many picks coming in. Renekton going to be yet again the first pick option here. No ability to pair that with an Elise, and it is going to be still early game. The focus on Mega's side, of course, something that we were expecting from this squad as the Thresh comes out as well to try and combat that Rakan that's already been locked in. And Crash, he has got that mechanics check in the Lee Sin already locked away, and this Xayah would certainly be something we'd be expecting in the hands of Eminem.
But I do want to kind of quickly point out the order in which they were picked. You normally never see the Rakan as such high priority. I mean, people can think back to the Fnatic versus G2 final, but that matchup was very, very different. Usually you see the Xayah prioritized because when you separate the Rakan from the Xayah, it's harder to find a winning matchup for Rakan. Usually you just maybe you can do like an Ezreal Rakan or even like a Lucian Rakan. It's about like that poke. So to see Xayah kind of left open and the higher priority on the Rakan makes me really curious if Daewoo just doesn't feel necessarily as confident on the champion. He did play it. It's not one of his big standout champions, much more of like the Kai'Sa player, but that is something to watch out for. If HKA only do that versus Mega, or if actually potentially as they move further on in this group, by putting so much priority on Rakan, they end up with a losing bot lane because they allowed the Xayah to be separated from them.
The thing I really like about it is the fact that they've just locked in Engage in that first round, right? They've got, I can go in with these champions, and does certainly fit their play style. As Ezreal going to be taken away from Dale, of course, a player that I have a bit of history with, of course, commentated him promoting into the LCK with ever 8 winners, and then was promptly taken out again very quickly. That was actually with Keen, of course, a pretty storied top laner over in the LCK that unfortunately didn't make it once again to the World Championships. 280 carry is going to be banned, as that Kai'Sa that you mentioned before going to be taken away here by HKA, and Mega Esports get rid of the gangplank on the top side of the map. 3Z not going to have that, and 3Z is the standout name here for HKA for me. Of course, was their big player when you and I were commentating Rift Rivals last year.
I think 3Z's a bit streaky, however. Like some games he looks amazing, and then some games his mentality just doesn't shift, and he tries to play hyper aggressive when he doesn't have it. And though Quinn was banned in our first series,
Yep.
it is actually going to get through. I expect it to be a top laner, but of course it is a flex pick.
Yep, Uzi certainly showing us that you can theoretically flex it to the bottom lane. Don't know whether that's necessarily a thing we want to see happen again, but
This is a bird comp.
yeah, there is a lot of flying around. What's the next pick then? Anivia? We going to Anivia mid lane?
You know something's gotten real strange if we see the Anivia locked in.
No, that has to be it though, right? I'll be very disappointed if it doesn't happen. As the Syndra is going to slip through the ban phase once again. So it's going to be locked down by G4 most likely, but could of course be in that bottom lane pairing Syndra with Thresh. Something that could happen and something that could still happen with Tristana. Now the decision as far as AD carries are concerned.
Now, what I really like about what Mega have put together before we see what HKA are going to fill out with their composition is that there are so many different avenues of attack. You have hard CC and gank set up in every single lane. So it really allows Lloyd to kind of pick and choose how is the lane phase going, what do these matchups look like, and he has the option that he can attack anywhere top, mid, or bottom. As HKA would round out though, I really like the Corki pick because you can have the early Hex Shrinker itemization into the Syndra to just deny the all-in unless Syndra gets snowballed that farther ahead of you, so I think it's super safe. Otherwise, HKA, they've got a lot more scaling. I like to call them bridge options in a sense of kind of bridging you from your early game to your mid game or your late game in the Quinn and Lee Sin. So a lot of eyes are going to be on Crash and 3Z in the early sections of this game to make sure that HKA allow Corki and Xayah to scale up to those 3 items.
We'll see how the team fights are going to go, because still a very squishy roster and will mean that Lloyd can hold on to relevance for much longer in this game on the Rex side that does like to take the Halo Blades and get a lot of damage down early. We saw Ananasik doing great things on the pickup earlier on. Of course, Ender, thank you so much for taking us through his fantastic jungle pathing. But like you say, I like the combination of Corki and Xayah. It is a tale as old as time as far as the similar range on these two and the fact that you have perfect damage balance between these two champions.
Which is why I also really love that Mega put priority on Tristana, one of the few champions that can match some of that range, especially with something like a Syndra or even a Cassiopeia. I think as we go longer into the tournament, watch these two champions and how often they're matched up together, because it's impossible to dive back and kill Tristana if she's always standing next to these types of mages. The Scatter the Weak, the Cassiopeia ultimate, it basically creates this massive buffer zone in front of her that just lets Tristana abuse you with her superior range and walk front to back in team fights.
Not to mention, Buster Shot pretty good for the self-peel, as well as Flay being available from the Thresh that you're going to have on the bottom side of the map. But the Lovers duo certainly formidable on the side of HKA. I like both of these compositions. Let's see which one comes out on top as we get into game 2 of the day. Mega versus HKA.
And I think this is going to be one of the question answers today. You know, what...
A question answer.
Question answers, yeah.
I like a question.
I thank goodness
It's like
I
the
speak for a
two-in-
living.
The 2-in-1 special.
This is going to answer a lot of our... Man, now you threw me off. No one really knows what to expect from any of these teams. To be frank, the real talk is these regions are so lopsided. These teams come in and they smash. They maybe lose like 3 games an entire split. Now, HKA played a lot more games in the LMS, only lost to teams like J-Team and AHQ, kind of the other representatives, dropped a couple of games. No, I think they 2-0'd Flash Wolves every single time, so never mind. But it's this idea of how good are they really? Because in their own regions, it is nothing but dominance. These are the top end of everything that you could see from the VCS and the LST.
Yeah, these are things that we've spoken about before. It's like the big fish, little pond syndrome, and how much of a small pond is it that you're dealing with? And thankfully, we're going to be able to find out a little bit more about it here now as the minions finally crash in the mid lane. Bit of HK history on your screen right there. Second Worlds appearance for this squad, and we don't want to talk about their first one. Let's just move on past that. But that was with Mission on the roster, and now 3Z finds Rocky And looking a little bit like a crocodile poacher here towards the top side of the map. Can be a rough matchup, especially early for the Renekton.
But this actually might be indicative of the rest of the meta that we see through not just play-ins, but also into Worlds. If Renekton continues to be such a high priority, he's going to get knocked down a bunch of pegs against these ranged top laners. We saw it in the previous series where the Quinn was banned, the Kennen was banned when you had a priority pick on Renekton, and now you're seeing why. Yes, he's super dominant in lane, but against ranged top laners, like you say, they can really abuse him.
Well, G4 going to miss the scat of the week there onto mission. Also sidesteps the sphere that goes down.
Taking fleet footwork on the Corki as opposed to one of the other multiple keystones that guy is versatile to bring with, so taking a lot of respect into the matchup.
How are you feeling about the teleport instead of the cleanse, though? Of course, sometimes cleanse almost necessary into the Syndra, being able to avoid the follow-up sphere for the extra combo damage. As the hook is going to land bottom side of the map, good play back there as well, but Kaiwing not going to be too worried about the situation presented.
I think the difference between taking the teleport summoner and a combat summoner, something like either the ignites, the cleanses, the heals, things that either help you prevent an all-in or look for an all-in. It's just about how you get pressure in the lane differently then. So Corki and Mission will be able to get pressure by kind of cheating backs, getting onto the field when his opponent is kind of walking back to lane since Syndra opted for the heal here. And then it's a question of what does he do with that extra time? Is this a TP when he has access to a package? Is this using a package on one side and then TPing back to his lane? So that's what we need to keep track of with a summoner spell like that. Or if he just gets blasted because he eats a scatter of the week and then gets knocked up by Lloyd and dies, probably gonna wish he had that cleanse.
Yep, 3Z, he's going to have lane priority here, which is why G4 wasn't able to exert dominance, and it looks like this blue buff isn't even going to be touched by Lloyd, going to concede that, and the idea of a Hail of Blades Rek'Sai conceding anything is a really weird thought for me, and he's going to move back and prove us wrong anyway, so just delayed a little bit there as far as that particular camp's take. And another hook going to land on the bottom side, but it's going to be turned into an engage opportunity. Good buffer there on the rocket jump, and Diol going to be absolutely fine.
I think when you're playing Thresh, you kind of have to think about the idea of kind of multiple rotations through your spells. I know a lot of times in solo queue, people will just play the Thresh like, okay, I'm looking for the all-in. If I find that hook, I'm absolutely taking it. We're killing him here and now. But in professional play, it's a lot more slower. It's usually kind of the third hook is the charm, especially when you're playing around the windows of the attack speed steroid between Xayah and Rakan. You'll see Thresh look for the hook, trade some health down. He'll hit one eventually, Atlas, I promise.
I'm waiting, man. I'm waiting.
He'll hit the hook, put some trade damage down, and then they'll wait out the steroid from Xayah and Rakan and kind of look for these little trades.
Well, see whether Pop gets in position to land another one. So far, his eye has certainly been in, as that's a great use of the Vault there from 3Z to get out of the way of the Ruthless Predator. And Rocky going to push a minion wave into this turret and possibly buy himself a back timing. Actually, the farm looking pretty good here for the Croc. As another hook going to come in. Hook to flay practice here for Pop on the bottom side. Not actually going to be getting them too much, though. As you say, it's sort of a little bit more fishing. And even though he's landing them, he's sending them back.
I think it's also just really hard with the Keystone from Rakan to make any of that damage stick, because you can see it's Thresh Death Sentence into Flay, into Auto Attack, into Trist Auto, into E.
Yeah.
And they're like hoping that that's enough, and then Rakan's like, I just throw my Q, get some health back, Guardian comes through, totally fine.
But it is buying a little bit of space here, so Dale, you can see, with a little bit extra CS here in this lane. Another hook, that one's going to be a minion. Not exactly the kind of prize that he wanted to get from that particular ocean.
Also nice that Pop took the coin if he's going to be throwing out Qs like this and looking for these types of trade patterns. Not only for obviously the gold coin, but for the mana coin, to keep him topped up so he can constantly look for those Qs rather than relying on some of the other advantages from some of those support items.
Well, it's going to be another buffered rocket jump. Pretty textbook as far as how to deal with the Rakan on the Tristana. Feeling pretty comfortable here as both junglers paid a bit of a visit, but otherwise not too much going to come from it. 200 gold is going to be the lead here for Mega in theory, but basically means nothing at this stage. We'll see whether the Rek'Sai can find something now as
Flash play?
Tunnels on forward. That's going to be that flash play that you were talking about, and Lloyd going to be flashing as well. Another hook going to land as First Blood comes on over. Dell was looking for the reset, but decides not to go too far as Crash was making his way down. Great start for Mega.
And really good timing from Lloyd right there, making sure that the wave was finally about to push back in towards Mega, so he had the opportunity to look for that gank and then just found the hole in the vision.
Really clean stuff Now Lloyd going to go back into his jungle feeling much better. I think that if Crash is going to pay another visit, it's going to feel a little bit better if you're Lloyd as we have a look at this one once again.
And it's just the fact that HKA didn't respect standing on that side of the lane when they didn't have vision. Now, to be fair to them, their jungler had just been down there. So ships passing in the night, it was a 2-second difference of, yeah, we're totally fine, or at least just check this bush. Nah, you weren't fine.
Yeah, very much not. I loved Lloyd's sidestep at the grand entrance there as well. Just really well mechanically played, straight into the flash, locking down the Xayah. So this means that Dale's going to be even more comfortable.
And kind of focusing on Lloyd a little bit. Did you just say Dale?
Well, it's basically Dale. It's hard for me with the... Do you know what we call him?
We know it
We
says...
just called him Jewel.
We know it says Duel.
Yeah.
We've heard it is pronounced Daul, so we can read. We're just trying to.
We're trying to read it correctly.
Twitch chat's freaking out.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just going to call him Dale, apparently.
So G4, Lloyd, and Rocky have kind of been the core of, I think, international appearance from the LST. And
Yeah, going all the way back to the Bangkok Titans,
yeah,
right?
C forever. And Lloyd in particular, this guy has position swapped multiple times. Was previously the ADC, has now swapped back into the jungle. So obviously kind of like the core of C as a region. And it's always nice to see him return to the stage and see a familiar face. Because every time I'm in planes, I'm like, okay, where's G4, Lloyd, and Rocky? I'm ready to see these guys again, take another shot at it. And unfortunately, last time we saw them at MSI, they went 2-4. They did take a game off of Vega Squadron, who ended up kind of being the team to beat. So they did kind of rise to the occasion finally. But a lot of their fans felt the sentiment that you didn't get to see Mega's playstyle, that they went to an international stage, they had a brand new jungler, and they kind of choked or they fell apart. So this is, again, that redemption storyline that we're talking about, that we actually just want to see Mega play their style and represent their region with pride.
Well, if you're an Oceanic viewer, throughout the years, of course, you will recognize G4's name, but probably not with as much happiness as you there, Frostgrim, because he's denied our teams so many times.
I was with you on that cast, Chiefs versus Bangkok Titans. You cried.
I did. It was devastating. That was our year. What was that, 2016?
Yeah.
Oh, it was tough times. It was really tough times. And after a 2015, that was also very difficult for us in that particular office, but I digress. Package delivered to the mid lane, as Mission just going to be eliminating minions with it. And G4 handed over a blue buff. Plenty of time to talk.
We talked about some of the itemization choices that Corki could have as a possible pick into Syndra as we see her rise in prominence in plans so far. And he's opted not to go for the Hexdrinker and said, yeah, he does have the health crystal and the component of the Phage. But I think he's actually just kind of testing his luck, wanted to see how the lane phase would go. And he's like, I'm not actually really feeling threatened by G4 here. He's not hitting his Scatter the Weak. He's not laying down, making a lot of that damage stick. And so probably opting to not diverge his damage by looking for that Hexdrinker early and instead going straight towards the Trinity.
And also going to be much more difficult to hit because now has Rage passive and the Fleet Footwork, so a lot of extra movement speed here for Mission. But is going to be potentially face checking a jungler and mid laner. Going to be too worried about it is... yeah, you can't keep doing that. The slices straight into the Quinn aren't necessarily working out.
But this is crazy. You almost never see this, and a lot of HKA are getting access to this river because Xayah and Rakan had gotten priority over the bot lane and then rotated up. But the fact of the matter is that Corki is a late-game insurance policy. His lane phase is super safe, but he's not very good in skirmishes, whereas someone like a Syndra and a Hail of Blades Rek'Sai hit like a truck if they hit their skill shots. Well, if Syndra hits their skill shots. So the fact that Mega actually just got forced off of river control there is actually a pretty big deal. It shouldn't work like that.
Well, they're going to get forced out even further as Lloyd down to about half health and actually smites Crash. Interesting. He's trying to dodge a Q and does so very nicely. I don't know whether he necessarily need to. Not very many friends around to help Crash out there, but maybe Lloyd just without enough information. Bottom lane going to move on back here for HKA, and we've got a back timing for Mega. A possibility for this Mountain Drake if HKA want it.
I'm going to be frank here. Crash just completely bullied Lloyd out of the jungle. And I think a lot of that was on G4. I think G4 needed to collapse. Now, G4 was getting zoned away by Mission, throwing out those rockets, but I think G4 needs to be a lot more proactive and a lot more aggressive here. He is the firepower of his team, especially as a level 9 Syndra. If he hits you, he will chunk you out of the fight.
Well, we'll see whether he can hit this one as he throws down the orb. Valkyrie now on cooldown as the rest of HK moving on up. We've got a teleport to come in. Mega are committing to this fight. Good stun is going to land. Stolen is the Mountain Drake, but the kill is going to go over. And Lloyd is already dead. Disengage options now as 3Z. He's already flown down. The Skyfall's coming in as Rocky just copping auto attack after auto attack. Over the wall there with the slice, and it looks like Mega should be able to make their way out, but Harrier should be proccing yet again. No, not going to find it. 3Z moves on back, so kill for a Mountain Drake. There are arguments for good on both sides.
Yeah, I'm going to give it to Mega right there. This Drake, so important, obviously, for its early access into Baron, potentially. But because HKA were able to force Mega behind their tower, they're going to try to walk this directly into the Rift Herald, while Mega are trying to scramble to get back in position on this map. Here comes the TP.
Yep, another TP into another pit, this time on the north, as we've got a flash, but the hook is going to land. The scat of the week was good this time as G4, they're trying to deliver it to him, but Pop says, nope, we're not going to do it this time. Can't risk a Valkyrie coming off cooldown as Shelly is going to change her attention over to Lloyd. Mega, they definitely won that one.
Yeah, HKA overreach, and that's going to feel real bad, man. You had the setup on the Mountain Drake. It's stolen away from you. You say, it's fine. We can rock up to the Rift Herald. That one's taken away from you as well. Tristana now rotates into mid lane. Not one, not two, but potentially 3 plates. Two and a half. 2.5 plates.
Not going to commit too hard, of course. Running out of minion wave is the problem there, as Lloyd not going to be bullied out of the way of this Rift Scuttler and takes that one comfortably after taking down the Scuttler's mother in Shelly. Going to be utilized in one of these lanes. We'll see where he goes to try and grab some plates. 1 minute left on that one, and he's going to use the faster back timing and probably not going to find any money from Shelly.
So taking another look at this one, it is going to be, I think, the hero move from Lloyd to a smite to steal this one away.
That was a attack, I think.
It was. It's fine. A bunch of flashes on the back end of it. Unfortunately, not a lot of the CC training, but this is kind of where things went from bad to worse for HKA. That teleport in particular, Mission definitely needed his team to plant their feet and defend him, because that's a one-way ticket.
Yeah. And also did use the Valkyrie, didn't get over the wall, so that's going to be the problem. Is we are going to eat these last couple of plates here. Shelly will pile on through and gets the most valuable turret here for Mega. So a great start here for the Southeast Asian squad.
So there were 2 ways, or not just 2, there were a couple ways you could play that. You use the Rift Herald and you take down that mid lane tower. You just called it the most valuable in terms of access and opening up to the map. Or you use it with your Tristana, because we're still so early, or excuse me, well now it's crested over. You use it with your Tristana to try to get some of those plates off and try to snowball Tristana even further ahead of the clock, because having her on 3 items means so much more in this game.
I didn't know that Lloyd was actually going to be able to get to one of these side lanes to take out those plates after he backed, and there was only a minute to go, so I'm impressed that they were able to get those last couple of plates mid.
And I think that was the call on it. It was just the fact that they didn't set it up, and then they just immediately had to use it to make the most bang for their buck. But now my concern is with the map being so open now, these kind of outer towers falling down, I actually don't think that Mega's composition does very well on an open map. They do really well when they're grouped up, and Rocky, unfortunately, hasn't gotten the type of lead that he's needed. He's 30 CS down, so if they want to sit in a 1-4 formation, I think Rocky will just be punished by 3Z on this Quinn. So I'm curious how Mega are now going to kind of navigate this open map state.
Well, Mega, what they're doing is they're putting a Tristana into the inner turret of their opponent on the bottom side of the map. So feeling very comfortable.
But that could be a great adaptation. If your Renekton didn't get the lead that he wanted because he just got pushed in on his head by Quinn, then you feel that you have the safety on the Tristana. You're getting solo experience, solo gold. She's got the rocket jump, the booster jump. She can push it away. And again, you're trying to get that snowball for Daewoo ahead of the clock.
And also he has so much vision there on the bottom side of the map as well. So he was relatively comfortable just moving up and getting pressure on the inner turret. Isn't going to press his luck though as he moves back towards the mid lane just to try and eat some more of those red dots. Crash. Looking for this Rift Scuttler, does get it. Lloyd is going to just smite him to say no. It is going to be, luckily, for HKA going their way. And 35 seconds now on that Infernal Drake, and that is why that Scuttle vision is so important. We'll see whether HKA can actually put up a fight for this one. It's 2 very important Drakes as our first rolls.
And as we come into this potential Drake fight, I do want to highlight a key item, the stopwatch actual pickup from Mission here, because that could be the difference maker if the Syndra ultimate is able to completely burst him out, or when he uses that stopwatch, as well as now having the completed Trinity Force. So I think that window, if this is a 5v5 around Infernal, is kind of the moment to watch for where this game is going to break. Does Mission survive the team fight and output all that DPS on the Corki, or does he just get blown up?
We've currently got a Zeal instead of a rapid fire cannon as well, but Pop already taking so much damage there in the mid lane. Gets the heal out from Dale as well, as we've got a fight on two fronts. Lloyd taking a bit of damage. Looked like he didn't notice as he starts off on these Raptors, and now HKA. They're going to poke the Dragon and see whether they can actually secure this one. Remember last time it was stolen away from them, and they're not going to opt in for that situation yet again.
But you can see they didn't set up their lanes correctly. HKA, they assist ping on the mid and the bot wave. Mega have priority in both bot lane and mid lane, which will give them a faster access and rotation into this river. They can now try to clear out this vision, potentially set up a trap, start the Infernal. Not maybe my favorite call, but I think they'll get it.
Yeah, they are certainly going to get it. It was right under the noses of HKA. Of course, had vision of the area with the Rift Skull that we were talking about earlier, but very cleanly done by Mega. They just pushed HKA out of the way and grabbed the very coveted objective. So now Mountain and Infernal as we move towards that ever-present Baron buff coming up in 2.5 minutes.
And you'll hear us talk about the word fundamentals a lot in the play-ins, especially when we're looking at kind of very different teams with vastly different tournament structures and just kind of levels of international experience. And that's kind of, again, a perfect snapshot of what we mean when we're talking about fundamentals. The fact that HKA didn't attribute time to their waves to give them access to walk into the Infernal. So Mega did the right thing. They were just patient. They waited for the waves to pull HKA out of the Infernal pit and then took the Drake for free rather than trying to force the fight, which, great play.
Yeah, pretty nicely done. 18 minutes now on the clock as we're looking for another objective. 3Z, he thinks that it's going to be Rocky, as doesn't land the blind, but this is a Crocodile that just can't really move out from underneath his turret.
And also a potential win condition now for HKA. They've been playing on the back foot. They don't have the gold lead right now, sitting in between a lot of different item breakpoints. We talked about that bridge where you need 3Z to really
3Z
pop off.
looking for the solo kill. The flash comes in. He outplays him. No! Oh, he never even hit him, so it's an execution. So in theory, that's good news for 3Z, but man, that was so close and then so far.
Round two, up top, let's go.
Yeah, we land a stopwatch really nicely as G4. He's like, I got no buttons left, can't do anything, and he's going to be dead. The rest of his team turn up, but they're way too late. Still a 3v3, and it looks like they want it as Dale's going to use his rocket jump to close the gap. It's Crash! Oh my God, Pop, that was a hook. To end all hooks is now Kaiwing. He's trying to offer something, but doesn't get there. Pop is holding this team together, I swear.
That was the glimpse. That was HKA like, okay, we've got it. We got the win condition. We have Quinn in the side lane. Ah, that didn't work. Okay, top lane. We got top lane. Ah, that didn't work either.
And now it did a little bit.
And now Mega, again, winning across map. Arm it. Rocky just shoved that wave all the way into 3Z's tower. He's now made his back. He's feeling much happier, much more healthier than he was. He was starting to really feel that CS discrepancy. It's still there a bit. But
let's have a look at it one more time. Take us through what happened, Frosco.
Okay, so Rocky's not going to hit him, and 3Z is going to chase through the tower. He flashes, matches flash for flash, doesn't get the auto off, and then the final tower shot and the minions.
And Rocky didn't even need to use Color Meek or anything like that. Didn't need to do anything fancy. Just wandered around underneath the turret. I liked it. This is that stopwatch you were talking about before, used to perfect effect. And then G4 had no buttons to save himself, but Pop comes in. Wait for this hook onto Crash. It's really nice.
Yeah, good CC follow-up. Not necessarily predicts the flash, but obviously recognizes that Lee Sin's probably going to instantly flash.
Mm-hmm. Having a look at the gold, Dale's still looking fantastic. Stop laughing at me, okay? I've got an Australian accent. It's difficult to pronounce things effectively, and I live in Korea.
Dale over here on Tristana.
Yeah. But he's 1.4k ahead. This is a Trist that's feeling real great at 20 minutes into the game.
Yeah, he's almost completed his third item.
Mm-hmm. That's a lot of critical strike.
That means that to win this game, again, we talked about the win condition potentially for HKA.
Look at these firsts.
Well,
that were not they were not his stats.
I watched
in the LCK. Let me say that.
A
He
lot
has
of
certainly
Mega
improved.
in summer, and it's just Mega punching down. But the crazy thing is Mega weren't even considered the favorite team to be here. It was a team called Win.
Mm-hmm.
But when it came to their playoff format, Win actually got upset by one of the weakest teams in the LST, and then Mega just steamrolled through.
Yeah, it's like they sort of, there was a turn-off that Win took, and it wasn't a great one. It's like, you know how you look for that shortcut? And then, unfortunately, it's actually just a brick wall? Like, damn. well, maybe, you know, better luck next year, 2020. Maybe the vision's going to be stronger.
Rocky's hugging his tower. He's like, I've got it.
Yeah,
This is my best friend.
Outplay this one. Just needs to hit an ability on him this time. That's all he needs to worry about.
So what I would like to see HK actually do is decide that Zaya and Rakan will be okay in this mid lane to hold it and wave clear, and actually team crash up with 3Z and try to continually punish Rocky. Now maybe they're a bit gun shy because that dive didn't work very well, but I still think that's an opportunity of avenue for them to attack, because if you're just forcing waves back and forth, you got a Zaya, they got a Tristana, like, I'm going to call it execution based on who's going to outscale there. So I think they could be looking for side lanes to attack, which you can see that Mission is getting some work done.
He is certainly attacking a side lane. He is very, very deep. And Crash is here just flanking as well, looks for Agatha or the Gronk on the blue side of the map. For those of you who don't watch the LCK, and Mega are just going to go on down and pick up their second Mountain Drake, meaning that if a Baron is something they want to look at, they're not going to have to look at it for very long.
And that's the concerning thing here for HKA. It's that if you are trying to find kind of table scraps into these side lanes because you're afraid of the 5v5 at this point in the game, when you're looking at double Mountain Infernal, you will be forced to 5v5 because now Mega will have so much freedom to walk up to the Baron and say, if you do not challenge us, we are going to take it instantly. So the time has come, HKA. You will have to fight them.
The thing I'm scared about, right, is that this is a really squishy theoretically have a lot of scaling DPS on this squad.
I mean, I think right now so much responsibility is put on Mission, actually, especially if we're fighting around this Baron pit. Corki does super well with his long range, that as long as he has the vision and no one gets on top of him, he can really kind of be that one-man army to dissuade people. And then from there, it's Quinn and Lee Sin looking for divide and conquer. Separate people, try to find some of that. I mean, I agree with you, it's not necessarily burst, but just to separate someone out and kind of pick off the weak.
Okay, so a little bit like a try and poke them down, try and get them into awkward positions, get the straggler, and then move on through the rest of the team with a man advantage.
But it is so much harder to execute versus Mega's composition.
I've seen this movie before, Froskarin, as we've got the Vault to come in. Rocky taking a lot of extra damage here at the beginning, and 3Z says, nope. Not doing that one again.
But now Mega are in the situation where, again, this is the only place that HKA are feeling confident and are winning. So do you save Rocky? Do you pull him out of this? Do you try to force the 5v5 on the Baron, have confidence that you have that double Mountain? Or do you continue to let your Crocodile just get smashed by this bird?
I actually think that you're just all in on the Baron right now, right? You've got two Mountain Drakes, you're going to kill that thing so quickly, but HKA have a different thing to say about it. Pop is going to go golden, as now HKA running for the hills as Rocky teleports his way forward.
And that has to be, that's the trigger. Rocky just pulled the TP. You can see Quinn is going to town.
Yeah, completely committed on the outer turret on the bottom side, so this Baron down to about half health. We're trying to get there. Flapping our wings as we're trying to get forward, but Lloyd has to go golden. G4 flashing over the wall. Crash gonna get out of the way.
Quinn's here.
Of the week, and finally 3Z is going to arrive, and that's because they peeled away from the Baron, trying to find kills that they didn't manage to get.
Mega are in trouble. Like you said, they were trying to find kills. They couldn't find them. They burned all of their cooldowns. Mega tried to go all in. They tried to be bold. They tried to be confident. They tried to force the Baron, and it burns them really hard. This is exactly what HKA needed to continue to stall out this game, to continue to buy time for Corki and Zaya.
Yeah, I really thought that 3Z had overstayed his welcome there on the bottom side of the map, maybe greeting for an outer turret when he could have been defending the Baron, but they made the right play. Crash was there threatening to try and steal away the Baron.
Just do it, boys.
Yeah, someone start the Baron. Let's start trying to find some of these objectives.
And you can see Mega. Mega knew. They started their backs. They stopped them. They're trying to stagger them right now. But this is so far this game is being defined by indecision.
Yeah.
These intense split-second moments. Do we do the Baron? Do we not do the Baron? And both teams have fumbled it. So someone has got to step up and make their mark.
Well, Crash is going to miss the Q. This is Eminem.
Out the hook.
Lands again. Damn. That's a targeted ability for this Pop guy, I swear. Really nice stuff. Eminem, though, only has to blow the heal, so still holds onto the flash and has that Feather Storm available pretty soon. As this Trist is getting bigger and bigger. Level 13, drawing a bead. And that range is just extending. This team fight is looking scary because Mega can just fight front to back very comfortably with this composition.
So Mega are in a situation where they're playing now without teleport. So as soon as Rocky is down there, they're playing without a numbers advantage. So They have an opportunity where they're going to get another crack at setting up this Baron, but it's going to be harder to do now because they don't have access to the Renekton. And then they're running out of time. You can now see the experience difference between 3Z and Rocky. We've been watching him just punch down on Rocky all game long. So this is your window, your shrinking opportunity. 3Z will eventually break this. Mega might be forced to make the decision on the Baron again.
But it was certainly a Rocky advantage throughout most of this game. Only recently, 3Z's been able to get him with the out farm, close to 60. This Crash just going to tag that Baron to check whether anyone's doing it. Finds out the good news. Not going to need to go in for any steals just yet. Okay. This is on repeat, pretty sure.
I wish Crash would actually just walk down there, or even better, Mission, because he's got TP.
But this could certainly happen. If Crash is going to be bottom side of the map, the Baron should belong to Mega. As Sonic Wave now on cooldown, not going to find the stun once again, is G4. And that means Mega are going to pull away. Rocky, oh, he stepped a little bit too far. Blade of the Ruin King comes forward, trying to get as much health back as possible. But once again, 3Z not going to bite off more than he can chew.
So your two options if you're HKA and playing kind of this map formation is that you send down Mission with 3Z because Mission has the TP, and you actually just kill Rocky and then force the tower. And you're no longer playing to defend the Baron, you're playing to kill the bottom inhib. Or you send Crash down there. And you think that the poke damage from the Corki is able to dissuade them from the Baron. I do agree with you, because it's double mountain, probably better to leave Crash there to look for the potential steal. But if we just keep lining up in kind of this 1-4, I actually think it means less for Mega. Like, I still think that HKA's composition harder to execute, but I feel like they will be the superior, more experienced team, especially in these types of scenarios. So Mega is getting hard stalled out here. They cannot figure out how to break this problem of wanting to get this objective, and they are unsure how to continue to move their advantage in this game without Baron.
My main takeaway from that is the fact that they have a lot of options of things that they can do, and they're not doing any of those things. And we just like something to be done, you know, some sort of decision to be made in this game, because just slowly but surely farming out side lanes isn't necessarily good for either of these teams. Because HK, I like that you talk about their composition and how it's played in the late game, because it's a finesse comp, right? Like, you don't have a front line. You need to use your poke damage, you need to use your zoning tools, and you need to use your flank potential in order to make it work. But there are only very select moments that you have to carve out of this game, and they're not necessarily doing that either. So there's certainly some criticisms on both sides.
And I actually don't know where the break point's going to be between Renekton and Quinn. It could just be that with Rocky's...
Surprise, surprise, a lot of burst damage as G4, of course, is going to be there.
It could just be with Rocky going away from the Spear of Shojin build and instead going just like straight tank, that eventually 3Z just loses the ability to kill him, continues to farm up there, but the Renekton's just unmovable.
Well, Kaiwing looks for the grand entrance, doesn't get there as Mission now throwing rockets over to the side as 3Z has found Rocky yet again. Now, with the ability to block some of these crits, certainly good for the Crocodile. You saw not taking as much damage, but still has no way to fight 3Z if he just stands there or tries to fight back. And we are super even. It is 30 minutes, about to tick over, and it's 200 as far as the goal. This is extraordinarily close. Earth, Wind, and Fire going to be the Drakes. September just passed, unfortunately.
We were, what, right on the clock for the Elder? How close was that?
Yeah, we were real close. And 5 minutes now, and that one is going to be available. Let's see, there's a lot going on, but also not a lot going on at all. Everyone's trying to, like, jockey for position.
That flash is actually really important, though. Again, we talked about it over the course of the game, how important Mission's responsibility is as like the primary damage dealer, and such a range advantage. Not having access to flash means that he obviously can't be as aggressive in his positioning. So we'll keep our eyes on Mission and see if that turns around to burn him.
Also doesn't have rapid fire cannon yet, so doesn't have that extra range on his auto attacks that can be pretty important here for the Corki. Love Corki, just power spikes everywhere. 1 item, 2 items, 3 items, 4 items. Just power spikes across the board.
I also just think the range on Corgi is pretty unfair when you're dealing at like the highest level of League of Legends, and I think that's why he's been such a staple pick for so long. Again, super safe in lane, great late game insurance policy, and then just having superior range on compositions. At the highest level, it could just, you look at who has the bigger range, you're like, ah, that team wins.
Yeah, well, We've got a Tristana with a Bloodthirster now, so the poke from the Corki not going to be as important if he is going to find Dale in the back line. And 10 CS is the lead here for Eminem, just slightly. And he's also got his trio of items that he really likes to see. So as far as itemization, both of these teams very happy. And there is no gold in this. Someone needs to make a decision. I'm sure someone's going to at some point, Frosco. Who's your money on?
My money's on Daewoo. I feel like this game is going to...
He was already doing it. That was too easy.
This game's decided by Mission or Daewoo. Does Daewoo just get to hit people, chunk them out, walk out to a tower and force them off? Or will Mission use his TP and help out his Quinn bottom, please?
Well, 3Z is taking inner turrets on his own, so maybe doesn't need too much help at this stage.
Rocky just gave up.
Yeah, well, I would too, to be honest. He hasn't been having a great time.
Okay, here comes a potential package flank.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to do that one.
The Corgi taking on a little bit of a walk here. Make sure you get that exercise in if you're going to be playing that skin as Lloyd.
He's
barely missed by that one.
He's playing middly right now on the
That inhibitor turret fell down. 3Z now going to try and kill the Crocodile and should be able to do it very comfortably. And if he doesn't kill the Croc, he will kill this inhibitor. There's now the slice, the dice, the vault. And no, Rocky, you're not doing nothing. And 3Z's just abusing this matchup. And the problem is Mega can't make a decision, and therefore there's nothing to be gained elsewhere on the map.
Yeah.
It's almost a flame horizon from 3Z as well. I'm really glad that we highlighted it. Of course, 3Z being a player to watch. I think if you were to talk to someone like Raz, he was certainly really up on 3Z in 2018 Rift Rivals when he was there. And I believe Marchi at the time.
Hipster Raz.
Hipster Raz, the guy loves it.
Okay, we're making the decision now. Like you said, Mega have run out of time. They're using the TP. They're going all in right now. They don't have the bottom inhib. This is it.
Right, we're going for a 50-50, boys. 2,000 help now on the
They got it!
Stolen by Crash. HKA. Can they win the team fight afterwards? Crash is going to go down very, very low. But Mission destroys Lloyd. Rocky goes golden, but then goes into the death chamber. A double kill. Now for Mission. Pop's going to go down. And the Zaya grabs one of them as well. Eminem picks it up. And now HKA, they're going to look at the enemy base and go, oh, what happened to that? It's already been destroyed.
Exactly. They're going to TP down. This is going to be the end of the game. Mega got stalled out on the Baron for what felt like years. The indecision there. How were they going to attack the map? And it was HKA with better fundamentals on the day, on the back of 3Z, split up the map, stole the Baron, and will now steal the game.
And I love this as a lesson. The price of indecision. Mega, they had the mid game. They had the control. They didn't use it. And now the Nexus will fall on their side of the map. HKA successful in their first game at Worlds.
That one was a doozy.
That was a doozy. Certainly unexpected with how the mid game went. But it is a great lesson to take away. You need to make plays. If G2 taught us anything, it's make decisions and be on the same page about them. Then it doesn't necessarily matter. Like, any decision that you're all on board with is generally better than a good decision that is made only half-heartedly or by only some of the team. So Mega just needed to pull the trigger and they didn't.
I also think it's putting a magnifying glass on how much top lane is going to mean in these play-ins. When you have guys like Nuguri and Huni, who have just been, well, Huni kind of coin flippy.
I mean, if you
but can't be
just look at second game, you're fine.
These monsters, because this game was finally cracked open by HKA through their top laner.
Yeah, and it was abuse of Renekton's as well. We've seen so much priority on this Renekton. And of course, Noguri on the Vladimir into the Renekton earlier on. Renekton just didn't have the range to deal with him, even though the matchup is a little bit better. Quinn versus Renekton, though, is awful just all the time. You're just never going to have any real moments to get ahead in that matchup. And despite the fact that Mega did get the game to a position that they wanted it, they just weren't able to make anything happen. And then by just war of attrition, 3Z walked into their base and killed inhibitors.
Just watching the guys walk through. Now, yeah, I agree with you. I think that there are definite tape to go back and watch. They got a little bit lost on the stage.
I think they'll find their way. It'll be fine. I got a little bit lost, to be honest, when I was here for the first time.
I was really excited. I thought I was about to get a high five.
Hey, that's true, mate. Oh, we missed out. We were too busy talking about their victory.
I think this is a series where both teams will go back, watch the tape, and it's pretty clear kind of where some of the errors were in terms of Mega really tightening up their setup on the Baron, finding that confidence, maybe some more time on the international stage to find their footing. This isn't the first time that this team has felt a little bit shy of the spotlight.
Yeah.
And HKA, you know, maybe a warm-up game. They're not AHQ, they're not J team. This is the third seed for the LMS, but
yeah, let's have
expected
a look at the 50-50.
more.
This is Crash. Maybe living up to a name that he sort of had when he joined Longzhu, wasn't able to live up to it, and finally finds a beautiful Baron steal in order to win the game for HKA. It was that one moment. Sometimes you got a coin flip and Mega got to a position where I actually didn't mind that play, honestly, because they were at a point where they couldn't handle the pressure from the Quinn, so you just have to go for it. And that is a cliff being fallen off.
Oh, look at Rocky's damage dealt comparatively to 3Z.
Mm-hmm.
That is...
Wow.
That hurts.
Can we have I want the multiplication stat of how many 1.5s go into 21K? A lot. That's certainly an out damaging, but you can understand why, right? It's not like, oh, this is hilarious and he didn't do any damage. It's the Crocodile was dealt with in a way that was unanswerable, honestly.
And it was also, again, divergence of itemization. Rocky was like, I'm losing, I need to build tank, when traditionally we do see that Spear of Shojin. It feels like kind of the 2-item Renekton, when he does have access to Spear, actually becomes a really strong team fighting monster rather than just a laning duelist because of his ability to get multiple iterations of the stun off. So I think you kind of go back to the drawing board, maybe some head scratchers there. I kind of understand what he was thinking, but I think you just have to double in on looking for 5v5 at that point when Daewoo is, you know, so far ahead on this Tristana.
Yeah, didn't actually matter at all in the end, though. And honestly, I think that when you've got a position in the game where you have to be making the moves, if there are nerves involved, it's far more difficult to win a game. So we've spoken about that on Analyst Desk a lot in the past.
Yep, but that said, congratulations to HKA. Now, hopefully they just continue to clean it up, you know, wet their feet with through plans, find their confidence, and then find their momentum as they look towards a group stage berth.
Yeah, for the last time for the LMS as well, so certainly a historic time. But for more on HKA's win, let's hear from their support.
Thank you very much, guys. And K-Wing, congratulations on the first win on the groups on the world stage here. That wasn't an easy one, apparently. So tell me about the expectations you had coming in today.
首先，恭喜你们拿到这次入围赛第一次拿到一个胜利这样子。那你可以跟我们讲一下，就你们目前来到入围赛的一个预期是什么样子吗？
我们的预期是小组赛、入围赛会全部赢，然后就进16强。
Our expectations is to win all of our games in the play-ins and then make it to group stage.
Okay, so tell me about this game before. They were on top the whole game, and then the Baron still happens, and you win the game. So talk me through the last play that got you the win.
你可以跟我们讲一下，因为这场比赛其实你们很多时候是处于落后的一个情况，直到最后一个打巴龙团战的时候才有办法逆转。那可以跟我们讲一下最后那个团战发生了什么事吗？
我觉得前面是因为我们有一些地方是打不好，所以才导致到怎么落后。然后那个巴龙团是因为我们看到对面果断去开巴龙了，然后我们就觉得拼死一波了，就直接需要开团。
So we were behind in the early game because we made a lot of the mistakes. And the Baron play happened because we saw Mega forcing the Baron. And when we saw that, we decided that we had to give it a shot. That was our only opportunity.
That was a really smart play, and that got you the win in the end. You are one of the returning players here in the play-in stage. Last time you played was 2017, got eliminated against Fnatic. So is there any player you're looking forward to face again, or you would like to take revenge on this year?
你也是 HKA 就再度回到世界赛赛场的一名选手。那时候在17年的时候，你们其实是被 Fnatic 击败的。这次回到世界赛，你有哪一个选手你特别想要面对的吗？
选手吗？可能也是 Fnatic 的下路吧。我想再跟他们打多一次。
I think it has to be Fnatic's bot lane. I want to face them again.
Well, hopefully you can face them again. Thank you so much for the interview, and thank you for the translation. We're going to take a break, and coming back, it's going to be Game 3 of the play-in stage.
We'll see whether the Rex see if I can find something now as
Flash
Lloyd
play.
tunnels on forward. That's going to be that flash play that you were talking about. And Lloyd going to be flashing as well. Another hook going to land.
Between a lot of different item breakpoints, we talked about that bridge where you need 3Z to really
3Z
pop off.
looking for the solo kill. The flash comes in. He outplays
Oh,
him. No! 2,000 health now on the stolen by Crash. HKA. Can they win the team fight afterwards? Crash is going to go down very, very low. But Mission destroys Lloyd. Rocky goes golden, but then goes into the death chamber. A double kill. Now for Mission, Pop's going to go down. And now the Nexus will fall on their side of the map. HKA successful in their first game at Worlds.
我的左手是天生的，在我最艰难的时候，英雄联盟给了我力量。钻石3，这是我现在的段位。
FIFA meeting is back here for Game 3. Korea's Damwon Gaming versus Flamengo Esports from the CB LOL. So for the first time we're seeing a Flamengo, and while Brazilian fans might be sweating over the caliber of opponents, it does not downplay just how excited they are to see their super team compete, especially when you consider the road Flamengo took to get here.
Oh yeah, and these fans have been waiting for so long because ever since Flamengo came into the CB LOL, they've played 3 splits now. They made it to the finals in all 3 splits, but for the first 2, they lost Game 5, went full 5 games, and they fell in Game 5. It was just this last summer that they finally won that Game 5 and were able to make it here in the first place.
Absolutely, and the CB LOL as a region is a very proud region with some great history behind it. Everyone remembers the kaboom that happened. However,
he really remembers it.
It is scrubbed from memory. Kaboom never happened.
However, in the last 3 Worlds, Trevor, they haven't done as well. They've only been able to take up the last 3 international tournaments. Sorry, they've only been able to pick up the single victory. Now that hasn't been Flamengo. That's been INTZ. That has been Kaboom returning to the international stage. So I'm so excited to see what this team can actually do and whether they can shake up this group.
Of course, BRTT back on the international stage, and a lot of fans, especially LCS fans, might recognize Shrimp. He did play in the LCS, and after what Flamengo saw from Damwon earlier today, I caught up with BRTT very briefly, and there's an air of confidence and acknowledgement of how difficult the game is, but they're looking forward to this matchup.
And especially when you examine the bot lane performance from Nuclear. I think BRTT and Lucy, as sort of the power couple on this team, are going to feel very good coming into this matchup, because in a lot of Flamengo's wins, it is that bot lane duo gaining these early game advantages and then punishing poor play in the bottom lane. I think that after seeing this Game 1 from Damwon, they're thinking, hey, we can maybe do this ourselves.
Absolutely, and I think that if you get rid of the Xayah and try and force Nuclear onto the Kai'Sa, you have options in the Draven and in the Lucian to try and really go at that duo lane. I think that it will be fairly telegraphed what Damwon want to be able to play in that bottom lane, and that could be an area that Flamengo looks to attack.
I love the champions, too, that BRTT will pull out, like the Draven, but also Lucy, known for these aggressive playmaking supports. When Lucy sees a window to make a play, he'll take it every time.
Now, let's talk a little bit about expectations for this matchup. Obviously, Damwon, still a heavy favorite. Let's talk about their game performance from Game 1. It never felt like they were at risk, right? It never felt like they were really going to lose the game. They were even, but you had 2 scaling solo laners with Klepto that were significantly ahead of their opponents, and Nuguri just came in and literally instigate people right at the end.
Form is temporary, class is timeless, and you can see that with Nuguri as well as Showmaker, they have 2 very classy solo laners. These guys were just willing to take the Kleptomancy, they built huge individual leads, and then were able to run over teams.
Take a look at the damage that pops out there. I mean, Nuclear ends up getting the triple at the end, but it was not his damage, I think is what Froskuren was trying to say.
So online, I saw a lot of comments saying this game looked like a 2v5 from Damwon.
Yep.
I have to say, I completely agree. It was literally just the solo laners trying to drag the rest of the team. I think Canyon was like half alive, but they were trying to drag him across for a win.
Yeah, absolutely, and I guess that is the good news for Damwon fans, right? Canyon, not a great first game. Beryl certainly not up to the standard that we're used to seeing. So if they're able to get, one more person included in the play, it will become slightly easier. By the best of 5, you're hoping you got 4 or 5 people online, and then you should start rolling if you're Damwon.
Let's talk a little bit about expectation setting here. Now, Flamengo specifically with BRTT, knowing their playstyle as well, when that bottom lane gets ahead, they are able to unlock victories, at least in the CB LOL. This is a much more difficult task, but BRTT is looking up to the challenge.
Yeah, and the thing is that I think that they can win this bottom lane. But I don't know how well Robo and Goku are going to stand up in the solo lanes. So I'm expecting a very similar performance, but potentially not even the same level of solo laners as we saw from the TCL lineup. So it's one of those things like, is there hope? Is there an area you can attack? Sure, but unless you can deal with Nuguri or Showmaker, take one of them out of the game, it becomes so difficult.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. Just in terms of, yes, there's a clear plan for these guys, but you have to hope you can get some favorable matchups for Robo to hold on up top lane. I think for him, a really solid champion has always been that Aurelia. On other stuff, he has looked much less confident. So I come into this game, I think, very similar to yesterday when we saw Clutch get beaten in Game 1 and bounce back for Game 2. Damwon looked shaky in Game 1, still won it. I think they're going to look in fine form for this one.
And of course, for Flamengo, this is now the litmus test. We're now going to see how both of the teams below Damwon perform against the #1 seed, and it gets to set up some expectations for a matchup later in the day. Two teams advance to the knockouts of play-ins. They are almost ready on stage. So let's talk a little bit more maybe about the jungle matchup, and in particular how this could play out. You touched a little bit on Canyon's first game. You know, what do you want to see him shake up coming into this matchup?
Well, I just want to see some of that Canyon flair that I'm used to when I go and watch the LCK, because I genuinely think he's one of the smartest, most creative pathing junglers out there. This is a guy that will see a dive opportunity a minute and a half before it happens and then skip some of his buffs just so he can run up to a lane and make that happen. So it's these types of plays that you can't prepare for. You don't see coming until, you know, you're in the heat of the moment in the game that no teams are going to expect. I think that's where he can pounce.
Yeah, and that's where I think that Shrimp can follow suit of something we saw yesterday, be quite successful in the Skarner. It's one of the quickest junglers, and it deals with explosive solo laners really well. If you can just grab Nuggery at the start of the fight, or if you can just grab Showmaker and make them useless, or make them invest some of that well-earned gold into a QSS, there is an area that you can help rebuff some of these attacks.
Do have to cut you off, and I thank you very much for wrapping up just in time. Spawn, let's head on stage for Game 3 of the day.
As we turn back to Group D, please join me in welcoming a team making their first appearance at League of Legends World Championship. From Brazil, Cibilo, it's Flamengo Esports. One more time, guys. Hear it for Flamengo Esports.
Back, ladies and gentlemen, Game 3 of the day, and Damwon, they didn't necessarily look like the dominant force that we may have expected, and our Brazilian representatives certainly have a lot of fans in the crowd today.
As we turn back to Group D, please join me in welcoming a team making their first appearance at League of Legends World Championship.
He's got some very
From
rare
Brazil,
sneakers, the
Cibilo, it's Flamengo
I am
Esports.
actually also a fan. I was like, that is some sweet footwear on right now. But as you're saying, that one coming in, yes, it was a 2v7? Is that what we're going to call it?
Just 2v5, okay? I think more absentee rather than defecting. It was the rest of Damwon.
It was a Showmaker and Nuguri special here, and I think the blueprint has been set out for Flamengo about how they want to attack, and it does start with this guy on your screen. Now, they can attack through BRTT. He is a very aggressive laner, and I actually think that maybe you could even bait giving away the Xayah pick. I know that Jake on the analyst desk was talking about maybe forcing Nuclear on Kai'Sa, you know, get him away from the Xayah so he doesn't have so much safety. But Draven into Xayah
Oh yeah, feels good.
is a great matchup for BRTT, and I would love to see a Draven into a Xayah matchup.
And he looks pumped up as well on your screen right there. So let's see what they can do as we get into Champion Select for game number 3. Already, Cat on a Book going to be banned away, not going to be able to augment the power of BRTT this time around. The man has been synonymous with Brazilian League of Legends for so damn long. Fantastic to see him on the stage once again as the Draven is banned.
He's, when the LCK 3rd seed pays you respect.
Well, I mean, to be honest, they've banned a few Dravens so far.
Nikila's like, he's a Draven player, I'm not dealing with that.
Yeah. Ghost, our resident Draven player of the LCK, yeah, that was what Damwon decided to get rid of when up against Sandbox Gaming, and it's going to be the same here up against Flamengo, who are taking away the power picks on this patch, and then Canyon's Gragas going to hit the bench. Of course, in Korea, Gragas, the priority, gigantic on 916.
But that's the priority on a Renekton first pick. And we've been talking about it a little bit throughout the day, that it feels like teams are misplaced. Damonte and Clutch really kind of got, I'm going to say, soft-flamed by their priority on the Renekton. We just saw Quinn taken into it and how abusive it can be. So let's see what Damwon have in store with this pick, or if Nuguri or Showmaker are just so much better at piloting this champion.
Already, I like how Flamengo's composition is coming together. A lot of space control, a lot of zoning capabilities with the Nico and the Thresh, often paired together as Canyon gets his hands on his favorite champion at the moment. It is the Taliyah. And speaking of favorite champions, of course, Nuclear going to go towards the Kai'Sa if he can get it. It's not going to be the Elise combination with the Renekton, but we've seen in the past that this combo is about as punishing.
Yeah, there's still so much potential for getting around the map as quickly as possible, setting up that dive. You don't necessarily need your jungler to take the damage when you have a Renekton, pending on the matchup there. So my eyes are on Robo. What is he going to find? Is that going to be the Nico in the top lane for him in a ranged matchup to try to deal with this Renekton? Or when he sees the Talia and the potential of a dive coming in, is he going to look for something that's, okay, you're going to dive me and I need to be ready to take that type of aggression?
Well, still yet to know who's going to be playing the Renekton. My feeling is that it's going to be Showmaker. He did play a lot more games on the champion, and Damwon do love to pick late for Noguri. They like to get him into a position where his pick is providing as much surprise as possible. And look, albeit they are on the blue side, so not able to really surprise Flamengo that much. But as we're seeing in the bans, that Xayah that we were talking about before is going to be taken away from BRTT.
Barrel's Alistar might make it through, however.
Yeah, that could be frightening. That being said, I mean, how
Yeah,
worried
that's what
are
I
you
thought.
about it?
I'm very
They're
worried.
Pretty worried. They're pretty worried.
I think you have to respect ban Alistar, especially at this stage in the World Championship. Again, we'll probably see Barrel pull out his Alistar at some point during this championship. He is amazing on it.
He certainly is. I think that Barrel's Alistar is not necessarily a laning phase ban. And I think that if Flamengo are going to attack Damwon, they need to attack the laning phase, which is what my argument would be for leaving the Alistar available. Because I feel like if they're getting to a point where, you know, Damwon are comfortably team fighting, then you've probably got pretty close to losing anyway.
This is probably going to be BRTT's pickup right there. Okay, so I did want him to go for something with a lot more firepower in the lane phase. He had a couple of different bans thrown at him in the Draven and the Xayah, so I was like, he's got the access to things like Lucian, like Caitlyn, like Ezreal. Now the thing is whenever Caitlyn's in a game in Europe, is they decide to split the map and force vertical jungling. So Caitlyn has to play weak side, and she doesn't get to abuse her long range and how dominant she is in the map. I'm unsure if Damwon will look to do the same thing, but typically Caitlyn as a pick doesn't work in the LEC because of that strategy.
Well, this is most likely the rise in the hands of Noguri, as Barrel's going to lock away the Pyke. We've got Pyke Kai'Sa against the Thresh and the Caitlyn on the bottom side of the map. Certainly spicy, but that range advantage is certainly going to be there for BRTT.
And it could also mean that Barrel doesn't have to sit in that lane phase. You know, if things start going sideways in that 2v2 bot side, Barrel can be like, see ya, mate, just hard farm this one out. Caitlyn's going to push it into you, and he starts roaming around with Canyon.
Well, that is an Aatrox, and that is still going to be locked in. Flamengo valuing the comfort on the champion, regardless of what the numbers may say on 919.
And of course, if you look at the recent nerfs to Aatrox, it was his wave clear that was particularly hurt. Lost a lot of damage when he's using that Q on the minions itself. And that means that he doesn't just get to force you under a tower and kind of chunk you out with those Qs. Still, if he lands triple Q on you, it is going to hurt. But against something like a Ryze who can root you up and kind of maneuver around you, I think this is going to be a really tough matchup.
Yeah, could be really scary here. As we expected, Showmaker is looking like he's going to be on the Renekton. 21 seconds. And that is going to be confirmed. So Damwon, I like this composition a little bit more than what they showed us in their first outing. Felt a little bit like a show match with the fact that Showmaker got to play on his LeBlanc, with the fact that Noguri was on his Vladimir. This time this composition looks a lot more fluid because the gank assist for Canyon is outrageous.
Just set up and lock them down. You got the CC from the Renekton, the CC from the Ryze, and Canyon can just rock in, flip them back, and have so much damage to get away from. Now, I want to talk about zone control right now, because BRTT is on the Caitlyn, one of our longest range champions in the game. You said at the very beginning, when you see things like Nico, like Thresh, there's so much zone control for Flamengo. On the other side, Damwon actually have some pretty short range champions. Kai'Sa mid-range ADC, Ryze mid-range, and then Renekton as the melee champion. So I'm curious, how do Damwon actually break through that zone control? Can Flamengo keep their ADC safe? Can they keep Damwon away from him and allow these team fights to go through longer, to walk through?
I think it's about Flamengo getting vision so that they can deny flanks from Damwon, if it's going to be me. But ladies and gentlemen, here we are, our third game of the day. Damwon taking on Flamengo.
And they certainly have the sixth man of the crowd behind them.
Damn right they do, and maybe they'll need it moving into this one as well. As we described Damwon's first game as feeling like they're on a European holiday, hopefully this is going to feel a little bit more serious as Damwon already piling in.
I mean, if they want a
The enemy
vacation
jungle?
in France, they definitely need to tighten things up.
Yep.
Again, we talk about that blueprint that Royal Youth were able to run through at Damwon and really punish Nuclear and Beryl in particular. So we'll see. I talked about the split map that usually happens onto Caitlyn to force her to play weak side so she can't be really abusive. You do see an immediate invade and a lot of vision being placed around figuring out where Shrimp is going to start on this Rek'Sai. So my eyes are on Canyon's pathing and what he's going to do with this information.
Yeah. Expecting a red to Krug start, which is, of course, the fastest way to get towards that level 3. An understandable thing, as you can see, a potential interesting situation if you're looking at the vision, but it's not actually BRTT up there. There have been some lane swaps across the world, but we'll see.
A delayed invade. And we may actually see the split map, but it's actually Damwon who are allowing the potential for Caitlyn to play strong side. Now, this can do two things. Yes, you can say that BRTT, if this actually is vertical jungling, because it could also be that Canyon rocks across mid lane and then just secures his own red, or level 2 ganks Robo in the top lane.
Who's which lane, guys? As that is level 2 already, the flash, and that had to be respected. There was no way the Robo was going to survive if he had have been hit by that seismic shove. So already, Canyon, level 2, steals away a red buff and immediately basically wins lane for Showmaker, who's in the top lane.
Yeah, but the sacrifice might be that Shrimp, you can see he is sprinting towards the other red buff. We'll see if Canyon lets it go, decides that, yep, he's just going to farm the top side. Okay. So the map is split now, where Damwon own the top side of it. So BRTT will be aggressive on this Caitlyn. You can see he's already zoned away Beryl and Nuclear. Now the thing is, though, is that Damwon don't play through their bot lane. If Nuclear and Beryl just have to kind of take the short end of the stick, then that's actually fine. Damwon can say, okay, you can have that free lane phase. That means that we get a free lane phase for guys like Showmaker on the top side in this Renekton matchup right now, which we believe that we can just snowball harder.
Great hook is going to land there onto Beryl. They're going to commit for it as well. So much damage. The flip back onto Lucy, but Beryl is just going to play it safe. Doesn't even use the flash and eats the gray health. He's going to be okay. Up to 50% already.
Which then puts emphasis that if Lucy and BRTT find opportunities like that, it has to count. They need to make sure that if this is the advantage, if this is the trade that Damwon is giving them, that they need to find advantages down here. So with this slow crash, I would actually love to see Shrimp either threaten for plates or even potentially threaten a dive if these slow crashes keep getting built up.
Well, Showmaker level 3 does have access to Slice Dice and the Ruthless Predator, which could just spell death here. He goes for it, the flash in to try and guarantee, but Canyon presses his buttons in the wrong times. It doesn't even matter though. First blood goes down, and Damwon have struck first for the first time here at Worlds.
And it's going to be free for that, because Shrimp doesn't have any reason to be on the top side of the map. You can see he's playing with the Scuttle Crab right now. He does have access to his Krugs, but otherwise his camps were all down. He was going to be spending time towards bot lane, which means that Showmaker can continue to play aggressive.
That's the flash in. Halo Blades needs to be respected, but the seismic shove is going to land. Robo is going to come down and does get there first. But still, Canyon trying to juke around. Goku gets on in there, and Showmaker, so much damage. The first kill does go over to Flamengo, but Robo is looking for another one. Noguri completely out of mana. What was he doing there? A double kill to Flamengo. Shrimp's on the board.
And this is so important. Again, remember, Damwon chose to split the map, and Shrimp has now broken and ripped it back. Don't play with that, though.
Yeah, Showmaker, a lot of damage, but didn't have flash, remember, so Shrimp tunnels away to safety.
Again, so important, though. You have 2 kills onto Shrimp. Maybe he can start fighting back with this Hail of Blades Rek'Sai to get
he's
more
playing with the
Scuttle
Scuttle
Crab right now. He does have access to his Krugs. But otherwise, his camps were all down. He was going to be spending time towards bot lane, which means that misplayed this, and now we can get our foot back into taking control over the top side of the map.
Well, you can see just outside of vision is Canyon, just looking to